This is a regular meeting of the Mobile City Council, Tuesday, March 22nd. Please stand for our invocation, led by Mr. Nathan Emery, Chief Court Administrator, Mobile Municipal Court, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence following the pledge.
Heavenly Father, this morning our hearts go out to the people of Brussels who suffered a grievous attack. I pray that you bring comfort to those who lost loved ones and justice to the perpetrators. Thank you for those who sacrifice every day to keep us safe. Protect those who protect our city, those who are serving in the military, those who are serving in public safety, and all their families. Bless their work and reward their sacrifices. Heavenly Father, I give thanks for the many blessings you've given us and pray for the continued blessing of this great city. Thank you for the hard work and dedication of the city leaders in this room. Give them wisdom and discernment as they shape the future for all Mobilians. Direct their minds to that which is right, their hearts to love of neighbor, and their actions toward the good of all. May God bless America, and God bless the city of Mobile. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you would please remain standing for a moment of silence. As you just heard in the prayer, we want to remember the people of Brussels, Belgium, and the terrorist attacks there. So far, nearly 30 people dead and over 100 critically injured. So please, in your own way, if you would, remember the city and, of course, the families of those victims of this terrorist attack in your own way. Thank you.
Roll call, President Gregory,
Here.
Vice President Richardson,
Here.
Councilmember Manzi,
He is absent today.
Councilmember Small,
Here.
Councilmember Williams,
He will be here momentarily.
Councilmember Daves,
Here.
Councilmember Rich.
Here.
Statement of rules.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
We have quite the crowd here this morning. Fairly unusual. We have a couple of things on the agenda today that has brought this crowd out. Rules of our council are very simple. We just ask everyone to please turn off all of your electronic devices. If you come to the podium to speak, you will have 5 minutes. At the end of 4 minutes, you'll hear the buzzer. That's your indication it's time to begin wrapping up your comments and have a seat at that. Please give us your name and address for the record. If you have questions or concerns, please address them to me. I am the chair, and I will ask the appropriate council member or member of the administration to try to answer those questions for you at that time. Seeing that we do have a big crowd here this morning, and a number of you are here for a specific agenda item, we will just ask everyone to please adhere to the council rules. We have 36 people, at least, signed up to speak for one particular item today, which is a public hearing. There are probably more, but at least 36 that we know of. We give everyone 5 minutes, so I would respectfully ask you all to be respectful of us and our time and yours, that if someone has already come to the podium to speak and has said what you intended to say, that you not be repetitive. At 5 minutes apiece, 36 or more people will be here for 3 hours, and we have other things on the agenda today. So please keep that in mind. We just ask you to please work with us so that we can hear everyone who has come to speak. We want to listen, but again, please try not to be repetitive. A couple of things going on our agenda, other than a public hearing. You'll hear more about coming up in the agenda, but we have some very exciting things ahead. One is approving a team looking at revamping our city zoning. That's very important to us. Our zoning laws in many respects are antiquated, and we look forward to working with this team to revamp and rework the zoning laws, better listening to our community. This is all grown out of the Map for Mobile. So we thank Shayla and Diane for bringing this to us and working with us on this. We also have some exciting news on drainage. Drainage is always exciting. When I say exciting, it's exciting when it gets fixed. When there are problems, it's certainly not exciting, but we are beginning more work with our capital improvement program to make some repairs much-needed repairs for drainage. These are citywide, and you will see much more of that coming ahead. Yesterday was a big day for the city of Mobile. The maiden flight of the JetBlue Airbus A321. We here on the council, We on the council, along with the mayor and some members of his staff and the Mobile Airport Authority, were privileged to be able to watch the flight come in to Brooklyn. It was so exciting to see those employees of Airbus there watching what they had made happen. A great day for the city of Mobile, a great day for Airbus, and we just look forward to seeing more of these jets take off from Brooklyn. Just to know that this day has finally come for those of us who have been working on Airbus for many, many years. I see Bob and Troy and some of those guys from the chamber. It's like, did you ever think we would actually get here? I mean, it's hard to believe it's actually been accomplished, so we're very excited about that. Easter weekend coming up, a lot of Easter activities, from sunrise services to Easter egg hunts throughout the city. You'll hear more about that coming up. Again, we just thank you all for coming this morning. Appreciate you being here. For everyone who has come to speak on a specific agenda item, we thank you for coming, for taking your time to be with us, to let us know your thoughts. Ms. Carroll?
Approval of minutes of March 15th.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Communications from the mayor.
Well, good morning. Always great to see a large crowd here. You all know that the administration and the city council proposed items to be done to improve the city, but the execution really lies in the hands of our city employees, who either sit behind a steering wheel all day long, or they sit at a desk, trying to make sure that they are fulfilling their duty to move this city forward. In the last few months, we've been trying to work on making sure that these employees who do exemplary work are properly recognized. And today we have 4 employees. 2 we're backing up to the month of February, and 2 for the month of March. And at this time, I would ask Eileen Corkin, Lisa Foster, Mary Theall, and Cheryl Cunningham to please approach the podium and face the city council. And I will explain to everyone why you have been selected as the employees of the month. Each of these ladies were recommended by their supervisors and approved by the appropriate executive directors. Eileen Corkin, Eileen, raise your hand, okay, as works in safety and performance. Because of her tenacity, almost all of our solid waste, parks, and public building vehicles are equipped with drive cam equipment, and most importantly, are functioning properly. Eileen worked closely with departmental supervisors on how to mentor their employees. The supervisors now coach their employees on how to reduce risk and improve their driving skills. Our near collisions have decreased 50% from last year. Eileen is the driving force behind our vehicle safety program. I'm going to go through all of them, and then we'll give them all a round of applause. Lisa Foster, EMS Billing. Last year, the EMS Billing Department moved to a new electronic patient care reporting system, eliminating 6 obsolete programs. Lisa not only quickly adapted to the new system, she trained others in the system. She has been a dedicated leader in this transition period. Mary Theall. When we implemented the new Tyler software system, Mary took all of the classes available in the community at least twice so that she would have an understanding of what we were about to tackle. She volunteered to assist other clerks with the process and help the prosecutors and probation officers understand how to work the new system. Mary never shies away from any challenge and went above and beyond her normal duties and hours. Cheryl Cunningham. Cheryl played a critical role in the migration of the new financial system. She has been instrumental in converting financial data, creating files, and developing interfaces to other city systems. Cheryl is a valuable asset to the city and is a delight to work with. All 4 of these women used innovation to reduce costs and improve services to the citizens of Mobile. Let's give them a big round of applause. This time I'd ask Wayne Dean and Melissa Dickinson to please come forward. And there was one other person maybe with Wayne, is that correct? 3 of you? This is just a certificate of appreciation. I think everyone in this room knows the great work that United Cerebral Palsy does in the city of Mobile. So truly, it's just a certificate of appreciation. It says, hereby officially thanked and recognized for their important contribution and advocacy for the disabled community and to the city of Mobile. Done on this 22nd day of March in the year of our Lord 2016, proclaimed by William S. Stimson, the 108th mayor of the city. And we'll be glad for y'all to make a remark if you would like to address the council.
Thank you. I'm Todd Perkins with United Cerebral Palsy. On behalf of the agency, we want to thank the mayor and the council for this proclamation. As all agencies, we do outstanding work. We serve 32 counties, and we have a very dedicated staff. And again, thank you for this acknowledgement.
And in honor of Casual Day that we have coming up, we wanted to present a T-shirt to both you and Ms. Gregory. It's for a Casual Day on April 22nd. That is yours, and we have one for her.
I get the blue one.
Yes.
Blue for the lady.
Thank you very much.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you.
Back up here.
This time I'd ask Dr. Tony Waldrop to please approach the podium and face the council. We have a proclamation to read. It says, whereas the University of South Alabama has a more than 5-decade history of education, healthcare, research, and service, and whereas the university has grown to over 16,000 students, has awarded over 82,000 degrees, and has high academic standards, diverse programs, state-of-the-art facilities, and a health system that helps Mobilians live longer, healthier lives, and whereas the university intends on March 23, 2016 to widely publicize the many elements of the USA brand and recognize the quality of the university's faculty, staff, students, alumni, and friends with the brand slogan, "We are South." Now therefore, I, William S. Stimson, Mayor of the City of Mobile, and a proud trustee of the University of South Alabama, do hereby proclaim March 23rd, 2016 as University of South Alabama Day.
On behalf of all the employees that work at the University of South Alabama, let me thank you for this recognition of the university. I'm very proud of what the university is able to do, as the mayor has talked about. One additional thing I might add to that is that we train over 80% of Mobile County public school teachers and administrators. We feel very proud to be part of the community and to be welcomed by community. So thank you in recognizing the role that we play.
Dr. Waldrop, you brought some people with you. Would you ask them to stand and introduce them for us?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
We have our Student Government Association President, Robbie Rajandra. We have Jeb Shell, who of course works here in the community, but he's also president of the National Alumni Association. Jeb. And the person who's been spearheading and has done a great job for our branding campaign, the Executive Director for Marketing and Communications, Mike Haskins. Thank you.
Thank you. And of course, I might add something that Mr. Richardson tends to do when organizations come before us. I will brag a little bit because the University of South Alabama is in District 7.
And I would like to add to that you have at least one USA graduate up here on the council. That's Fred Richardson. I'm a proud graduate of the University of South Alabama, and my degree was in political science at a time that I barely had a chance to vote. and lo and behold, I put it to work.
To continue on my remarks, I would like to just comment on the remark that President Gregory made about Brussels. In the last 3 months, there have been 2 situations in our city where vigilant citizens observed something. They took their cell phone, they took pictures, they turned those pictures over to the law enforcement agencies and enabled us to run to ground what the situation was. I cannot overstress the importance of us as citizens maintaining that vigilance, observing what's going on around you, because you may be the one that has the camera in your hand that can take a picture that will help our law enforcement to make sure that they're protecting us on every front. So please keep that in mind. You know, yesterday, watching the Airbus land, I think it was Barry Eccleston said at this point, you know, and really going forward, that Airbus looks at lots of statistics, but one they pay particular attention to is they have the same number of landings as they do takeoffs. And that in Mobile, we're 1 for 1. So that's good. We hope that continues on. This project was on budget, on schedule, and the quality was really second to none. As we sat there at the lunch table, it was explained to me that you're never in a situation where everything is 100% perfect. This plane was 99.999%. There was only one thing that they found wrong with it. The coffee pot didn't work. And they said, and they were being very truthful about that. So the quality, the craftsmanship of the Mobilians and the Airbus team that built that plane, I think has set the tone for what Airbus is going to be expecting out of our great city. And so, you know, it was definitely a historical day, and there's more to come. Just last week, Recaro, I think I've pronounced it right, Aircraft Seating Company announced they will be opening an office at the Brooklyn Aeroplex. I think everyone in the aviation industry understands that we're open for business, and we're hoping that they're going to relocate, you know, to Mobile. Our Bloomberg Innovation Team will be unveiling their initiatives to overhaul Mobile's blight enforcement later today. The goal is to reduce instances of blight and revitalize Mobile's neighborhoods. Across the street at 200 Government Street at 3 o'clock today, they will be kicking off their findings. The drainage, when I first stepped into office, I think it was Councilor Richardson that was at lunch one day, and the head of ADEM explained to him that Mobile was the poster child for stormwater mismanagement. You know, that's a major problem when you're the rainiest city in America. Well, we're now on our way to becoming the poster child for excellent stormwater management. To ensure that effective stormwater management, we need to address the erosion and drainage issues. And after a collaborative process with the City Council, today is that about $1 million worth of drainage repairs that will be presented, or that have been presented, and there will be more drainage repairs that will be coming forth later in this year. The remarks that were made about zoning, you know, today, I'd ask if I could, if Douglas Curley, Mike Rogers, Jennifer Denson, Pratt Thomas, and Darrell Russell would just make your way down while I make my remarks, please. You know, we're presenting a contract today for the approval to study the City of Mobile's general land use plan, our major street plan, our zoning ordinance, and subdivision regulations that have not been replaced in almost 50 years. The contract will be awarded to White and Smith LLC for consultation services. This national land use law practice has completed more than 50 zoning and development codes in 26 states, including Montgomery, Alabama, Austin, Texas, and St. Petersburg, Florida. We initiated this project to develop 4 specific documents that translate the broad vision of the map for Mobile into specific land use policies. When we embarked on the Map for Mobile planning process, we promised to use it as a living document with action plans developed and reviewed on an annual basis. The next step will outline methods and approach the city and the approaches the city will follow in implementing zoning, land use, code, and ordinance changes. These improvements will foster and be a catalyst for economic development. that Jennifer and the gentlemen that are with us that stand there, I think a couple of them just going to make brief remarks so that the public understands the significance of this endeavor. Douglas?
All right.
Yep.
I'm Douglas Curley. I'm an architect, and the current zoning ordinance is, I think, dates from 1967. Has been amended numerous times, and I think this is a wonderful effort to get everything so it'll all be very clear and easy to use. I do a lot of work in the historic districts, and I'm hoping that it'll address things like that. I know we've got the overlay ordinance, which has been a great help in my work, so that I didn't have to get a variance every time I built a new structure that didn't deal with work with West Mobile setbacks. So I'm looking forward to this. I think it's a great thing.
Good. Pratt?
Good morning, Pratt Thomas, Merrill P. Thomas Company, commercial realtor. I served on the steering committee for the map for Mobile, and I think it's important that we take this next step to implement, this money and plan and vision for Mobile that, we set out to do, and I think this is the next step towards that. I know in my dealings in commercial real estate, I've had several instances where zoning and land use has prohibited or delayed a project significantly. So, so long as possibly a year before we've been able to get a deal done, and it's driven cost up so that a small business has really been hindered in trying to get open and generate profit. So this is something that I would greatly support.
Thank you. Thank y'all for coming. The additional comment that I would make is that, one of our main focuses is to become more business friendly, and that's really about job creation. And until we go through this process of addressing our zoning ordinances, it will not happen. The thought, or the contract that's presented today, if you look back on the map for Mobile, it took about 9 months, 8 or 9 months to make that happen with a lot of input from the entire community. This process that we're talking about that's on the agenda today will take 2 years to do because of the complexity of the issues. So anyway, we're grateful to be able to present it to the City Council for their consideration. So thank you, Madam President.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Lambert.
Monthly finance report.
Good morning.
Morning.
When I appeared before you last month, we did not even have our January financial reports in because we were going through the Tyler transition in the finance department. Finance went live earlier in this year, and when the City Council Finance Committee meets next, I'm proud to tell you, you'll get the first report that was produced on the Tyler software. It's not everything we want it to be yet because Tyler is actually going through a revision of the financial reporting system right now. So while we're getting prompt reports, they're not everything that we want them to be. They're better than they have been, but they should be even better a month or so from now. As far as performance, through February, the year has been fairly solid. As you know, we started out with a couple of up months and a couple of down months, but things have evened out now to where year-to-date for the first 5 months of the year, we're about 3.7% above where we were this time last year, which is about $2.9 million ahead. So that's year over year. Against the budget, we're up about 3.4% for the year. That compares with a state performance of about 4% up for the year. As you may recall, the state was running at about 6% over the previous year until now. So it looks like we're catching up to them, and we hope that we surpass their performance by the end of the year, which we did last year. All of our operating departments are continuing to remain below budget. For the first 5 months, our operating revenues, our operating expenses rather, were budgeted at about 41.6% of a full year's budget, and we're trending right now at 36.3%. So about a 5%
underage on expenditures. So if everything holds steady through the end of the year, we should have not a spectacular, but a solid financial performance. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Wesh? All right.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
Paul.
much.
Appreciate it. Ms. Lambert?
Adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Appeals, we have requests for a waiver of the noise ordinance on April the 2nd on South Lafayette Street, March 26th on Parkway Drive, March 27th on Pleasant Valley Road, April 19th on O'Shell Road, and April the 2nd on Airport Boulevard.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on these appeals? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Madam President, I neglected to call someone up. Ray Richardson is here to make an announcement regarding the Brownfield Community Meeting.
Okay, Ms. Richardson?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am here to introduce Ms. Deborah Love of E3 Solutions. She is our community engagement consultant on the Brownfield grant that we received in 2015. Ms. Love. Good morning.
Good morning.
As you know, the Environmental Protection Agency awarded the City of Mobile a Brownfield Environmental Assessment Grant. And the purpose of this grant is to focus on the Brooklyn Aeroplex and its surrounding areas, its surrounding District 3. The City of Mobile Assessment Grant is currently working on the Brooklyn Aeroplex, and this is in Census Tracts 23.02, 15.01, and 15.02. Revitalization of this portion of the city will support the overall vision and create jobs in District 3. Brownfields is an extensive program from EPA. In the beginning, you assess the properties. You clean up the properties. That's another grant. And then there's a job training component to train the people in the district to actually be able to clean up their area. Well, this is all said because there's an upcoming community meeting, and I would like to see all of you at that community meeting. The community meeting will be held March 29th at 6 p.m. at Maynes Middle School. It is very important to support this effort because when you look at Brooklyn Aeroplex and all the job creations you can see in the area, and you see how close proximity District 3, that you could really change that community. And we want to change that community, create a tax base, and create jobs for the citizens of District 3. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Madam President,
Yes, sir, Mr. Small?
I'd like to thank Ray Richardson and Ms. Love for all their hard work. I will be present at the meeting on Tuesday. I will be bringing greetings on Tuesday at Maynes Middle School. But as I look across the audience, I see several pastors that represent District 3. And it's my goal to hit majority of the churches to give you flyers to take to your churches for Sunday. So if you see me at the council meeting, be sure to give you copies, and I also will be delivering some copies to some churches this weekend, as well as District 3 Easter egg hunt, which will be this coming Saturday. Councilman Richardson, remember that District 3 is a place with themes. Thank you, Madam President.
Yeah, he had to get that in there. All right, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Ms. Lambert.
Public hearings. Today is a public hearing to consider an amendment to the zoning ordinance to provide supplementary regulation of the location and construction of new above-ground oil storage tanks.
Okay. This is a public hearing. I mentioned in my opening remarks that there were a couple of things on the agenda today that most everyone here in the audience is probably here to speak on. Just as some background, this zoning amendment that you see on the agenda is an initiative of the council. We started looking at this more than 2 years ago. And within that process, we appointed an ad hoc committee. They spent at least a year, maybe longer, researching, discussing, trying to come together with a consensus report back to the council, which they did. Following that consensus report from the ad hoc committee, the council then sent the report to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission, too, spent, seems like a year, probably seems longer to some, looking at our report, breaking into subcommittees before they came back with a recommendation. Then that came back to the council. The zoning amendment that you see on the agenda today is about 90% of what that ad hoc committee brought to us, with a few extra things kind of added in from the Planning Commission. Again, this has been an exhaustive process, so certainly something that didn't happen overnight. It is something that we on the council hope to come back with some sort of a consensus to protect the neighborhoods, but also to allow industry to continue operating. And that, as I'm sure you all would agree, is a tough order. So with that, we're going to open this up as a public hearing. Again, if you would like to speak, please come to the podium, give us your name and address for the record. You will have 5 minutes. At the end of 4 minutes, you will hear the buzzer. And Jennifer, if you will make sure to put that microphone on the buzzer so that we can all hear it and there's no mistaking it. Please try not to be repetitive, because everybody gets 5 minutes and we could be here a very long time. We would like to hear new information, preferably as you come to the podium. All right, thank you very much. Ms. Lambert?
Wanda Cochran. Dr. Pfeiffer will be next.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's a beautiful day. Wonderful things are happening in this city. And I attended the pre-council meeting, and I got to tell you, I am really enthusiastic.
Hey, Wanda, would you pull the microphone over just a little bit
And
for
I
you?
am very hopeful for the first time in the last 12 or 16 months.
And one more thing, we know who you are,
Oh,
but for the
gosh.
record.
Please excuse me. My name is Wanda Cochran, 465 Dauphin Street, and I am a municipal lawyer by trade. I am also a mother, a wife, and many other things. And I am most interested in this city, particularly the downtown and historic districts. So that's where I stand. And keeping in mind, you only see from where you stand. So I'm going to tell you what I see. And what I saw this morning was our city councilors, you get it. You understand that with the new zoning initiative, we have a historic opportunity to do something spectacular. I know that there has been a lot of work done. The ad hoc committee worked very, very hard. They added to the piece. The Planning Commission and the committees, they worked very, very hard. The community worked very hard to bring to the council and to the Planning Commission the stories of their strength and struggle around these industrial areas and what it meant to them and their families. We've got so much work. We can't stop now. We're almost to the finish line. And I know that the natural human impulse is, well, let's just get it done. But zoning is too complex and too important to push it through. We are on the verge. Now, what I did hear this morning is somebody said, well, we got to do this because the community of Africatown will not be protected. Well, that may or may not be true. Right now, Africatown is protected because the council has very wisely said for new projects in those areas, not only are they going to get planning approval, but they're going to come to the city council personally. So if we can keep that in place, I don't think we need to worry about Africatown. I think what we need to focus on is truly coming to consensus. I don't believe in my heart that this is an industry wins or the environment loses. We have a fabulous city. We have the most interesting port to look at visually. And I think we can get it done, and I would urge you not to stop. I think the hard work is going to come tomorrow, and I think you all get it. So with that in mind, I'm not going to say anything else in terms of drilling down into the minutia, but I will tell you I am here and ready to answer any question that you might have of me.
All right. Thank you very much. That was
All right.
about 2 minutes.
Great. So then with that, I will say that because the ordinance dates from 1967, I thought it might be appropriate to quote a poet who wrote something in 1967, and many of you may remember the incredible string band. But this particular poem, I will leave with you. May the longtime sun shine upon you, all love surround you, and may the pure light within guide your way on. You got hard work to do. Let's do it for everybody. Thanks.
Thank you. Dr. Pfeiffer. Following Dr. Pfeiffer will be Mike Lee.
Good morning. Rip Pfeiffer, 3726 Dawes Road, clinical professor of surgery at South Alabama and past president of the Medical Society. This ordinance deals more than just with Africatown and placing 2.5 million barrels of oil in Africatown. It has more than to do with the port turning into Port Arthur, Texas, rather than Charleston, South Carolina. If you vote for this ordinance, you're going to vote for 300 to 500 train load cars of volatile Bakken crude oil driving right through this city, right through Ms. Gregory's district, every single day when the oil prices come up. These are some of the results that we already know about, and I've presented these before. Like in Canada, where 45 people burned to death when 12 train cars exploded. This was in Lynchburg, Virginia, where 12 derailed and burned. This is in Aliceville, Alabama, where 15 derailed and burned, and that train was heading for, guess where? Mobile, Alabama. This is a plume of a single rail car exploding in South Dakota. The Department of Transportation recommends 5,280 feet, a mile on either side when these train cars derail. So that it would be virtually impossible to build any new oil tank farms if you have a 5,280 feet recommendation fire zone. The Planning Commission of the City of Mobile in Section 60-1 in proposing any new ordinances specifically states that it must protect from fire. This obviously is not the case. If you pass this ordinance, you're going to have 300 to 500 of these rail cars going over this trestle, which is over Big Creek, the primary drinking water supply of our city. There's enough benzene in one tank car that if it falls into this creek will make it undrinkable based on 5 parts per billion by the EPA. This is this train car that already derailed 45 miles west of this trestle a year and a half ago. If you vote for this ordinance, you're voting for Plains South Cap, Plains All-American Pipeline, the people who in a arrogant sort of way rammed the oil pipeline down our watershed a year and a half ago. These people on the verge of bankruptcy, do we really want to partner with another company that's on the verge of bankruptcy? Nobody in this council could send a message to Plains Pipeline people when they did this to us. Now you can send them a message because this is part of their business plan to develop these massive new oil terminal areas. And finally, if you vote for this ordinance, you're voting to condemn your children and grandchildren to the future ravages of climate change. Has no one in this audience but me read the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the President's Commission on Global Warming, that 150 nations 2 months ago met to discuss this very issue. Why, for Pete's sakes, are we developing and planning on a massive new fossil fuel infrastructure in 2016? We just have to keep from drinking the Kool-Aid. Thank you. Questions?
No, I've just,
Thank you.
thank you, Dr. Pfeiffer. Who follows Mr. Lee?
Following Mike Lee is Carol Adams Davis.
Good morning.
Morning.
I wanted to start by thanking the council, as you heard, and as has been pointed out already. There's a lot of work that went into this. There's a lot of committees, not just the council, but the planning commission, the ad hoc committees, have put in really closer, I think you mentioned over 2 years, close to 3 years on this. Every angle has been studied. All the information has been brought out. Rightfully, a great deal of thought and effort has gone into this. The result of that in this ordinance already, as I would remind you, goes well beyond the federal regulations that are already very strict on the industry and that have also had a lot of thought put into them. I think that's the reason that this, after all the consideration, the ordinance that you have before you today represents a reasonable compromise between all of the parties and all of the different issues we have. I think the very definition of compromise, nobody is totally happy with it, nobody gets everything they want, and nobody has been left out or treated in an unfair way. I think that because of all the effort that, as I said, rightfully went into this, you're not going to, to delay at this point is not going to create any new information, is only going to create more divisive debate. And I think the information is before the council to make the decision that they need to make. I'm going to leave some of the conversation about more details about the port and the importance of the port. I know I'm preaching to the choir when I tell you how many jobs in this, not just the tens of thousands of jobs in this area, but all over the state where it goes into the hundreds of thousands that depend on the port, and the port has to have balance to support all of the different industries. We have a small business. I live, I'm sorry, I neglected to say at the beginning, I'm Mike Lee. I live at 1110 Government Street, so I do live close to downtown. My office is in downtown on Jackson Street. Next year, our small business will celebrate 125 years in Mobile and working in the Mobile waterfront. And even a small business like ours we have 60 families that depend on the port and port-related activities. You can multiply that by the thousands, as we say. So you have to be very careful, very thoughtful when you go into a study like this. I think you've done that. I think you've come up with the answer, and it's before you. So I would just ask that you pass this ordinance and that we move on to the next of many important issues that are addressed in our community. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Carol Adams Davis. Following Carol Adams Davis is Bill Sisson.
Carol Adams Davis, 362 McDonald Avenue. In the history of this city, we have never permitted hazardous materials by right. This ordinance proposes to grandfather existing above-ground storage tank sites. If you have a tank operation, you can expand the number of tanks without a permit. This is rezoning property and making new above-ground storage tanks a use permitted by right. This ordinance is outrageous. It does not offer any standards for the Planning Commission to use in decision-making. The result is that the Planning Commission or the City Council, upon appeal, is making a decision lacking the information they need to guide them. No health protections, no emission controls or vapor recovery guidelines, no risk versus benefit assessments, no required air quality monitoring, no insurance liability requirements are included on any projects. Nearly 3 years have passed since the ordinance overlay was conceived. In this time period, we've learned a lot more about the risk of above-ground storage facilities. Our city administration has changed, and we've had a citywide study with exciting prospects. The City of Mobile is in the process of hiring professional services to restructure and redraft the City of Mobile zoning ordinance map and regulations. The whole scenario has changed, and the ordinance that comes out of this process needs to change as well. So why at this time would you vote on this backward, incomplete ordinance with all of the intended and unintended loopholes? There should not be an enhanced scrutiny area. Because of inherent risk, all requirements should apply to all new and existing above-ground storage tank systems and sites. The same scrutiny should be applied to all above-ground storage tank facilities to maintain a fair, competitive playing field, as well as securing the same public health and safety for everyone in every area. The equity issue between businesses is put completely out of balance when one tank storage facility in one area has to comply and another tank storage facility in another area is waived from compliance because of grandfathering or ESA. This exemption equates to a subsidy from the city to particular businesses and not to other businesses in the same industry. Measuring setback distance should preferably be from zone to zone or property line to property line, as in the existing Mobile Code. The measurement from tank to structure is a moving target and could be contrived to lessen the setback minimum. Eliminate the ESA, as setbacks for safety should not be confined to only some areas of the city. Because of proposed Section 7B in this ordinance, all of Sections 3, 4, 5, and 6 are not applicable to most new tanks, which means that most new tanks do not have to submit a planning approval application. Submitted plans should not be deemed compliant if the 60-day application process period lapses before completed. This would be a very irresponsible loophole that could be taken advantage of. An automatic extension could be a solution option. Because practices and technology advance with time along with codes and standards, older facilities should not have built-in continual approval, even after they become obsolete and more dangerous. This ordinance is too narrow. It only covers a limited number of hazardous products. There are many types of hazardous materials that aren't flammable or combustible, and the codes and guideline standards are very different than petroleum. It should be the responsibility of the operator, of course, and the city to rely on national guidelines to determine if materials that are stored, if they're hazardous to human health or environment. Shouldn't this be done case by case on all new materials other than petroleum to be stored in above-ground storage tanks? There's really not enough time to cover all of the problems with this ordinance and, of course, all of the things that have been omitted. Thank you so much for hearing today.
Thank you.
Following Bill Sisson is Mary Moore.
Good morning, members of the esteemed council. We appreciate the hard work that you have put into this ordinance and the work that you continue to do for advancing our city. I am Bill Sisson, President of the Mobile Area Chamber of Commerce, located at 451 Government Street. My family and I live in Midtown Mobile in the old Dolphin Way District. As I think you're probably aware, and many people in this audience, the Chamber represents more than 2,000 businesses, which represent over 90,000 employees. And as the voice of business for the community, we feel it is our duty to protect the business community as well as our environment and quality of life. These do not have to be mutually exclusive. From the beginning of these conversations regarding above-ground storage tanks, in this region, the Chamber has cautioned that there could be unintended consequences of changing the rules and the regulations of an industry that has operated safely at our port for decades. And that's why we have always been concerned about a grandfathering clause. We continually compete with other port cities throughout the United States, and I think it's very important for all of us to remember that all of those cities, they have storage tanks as well. And it is very apparent that none of them have the sort of setbacks that we're talking about with this ordinance. So that in itself seems to be a huge compromise of our existing industry. This is not new for the Chamber. We've had an energy policy in place since 2006, which simply states that the Chamber advocates for energy supply. And of course, it fuels our industry and all of our cars in a manner that is a protective of the environment. That's a large part of what that statement covers. Again, as the Economic Development Agency for this region, we are extremely protective of our port and those limited assets that we have at our port. The Chamber's recent energy study, which was carried out by Dr. Kayvon Daravi at Auburn University Montgomery, that report showed all of us just how connected our port and its existing infrastructure is to our jobs and this regional economy. That connectivity includes tanks, it includes pipelines, and of course other port infrastructure. And it means jobs. Over the past 5 years, we've seen a 33% increase in our manufacturing jobs with an astounding 22% increase in our wages in this region. This is being driven by those high-paying, highly skilled manufacturing positions like Airbus, for example. And this is helping to fuel other jobs in the service industry and, of course, the development that we're seeing in our retail arena all throughout the city and downtown developments being driven by those higher-paying positions that have been occurring. Let's not forget that. Furthermore, we all live here. We want the highest quality of life possible, and frankly, quality of life sells in economic development, no question about it. But let's also remember that without jobs and without our port, there is no way for us to truly advance this community and continue to see that quality of life advancement that I just touched on. I'm absolutely convinced that these do not have to be mutually exclusive, and this ordinance, as is, accomplishes just that. Again, thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
Following Ms. Moore is Troy Wayman.
My name is Marielle Moore. I live at 632 Wilder Lane in Plateau, Mobile, Alabama. And I am not speaking about, I voiced the sentiment of Ms. Davis here, what she have said about the ordinance and the zoning. I come as a resident of Plateau. And my thought is that I do not want to see any more chemicals coming, tanks, what have you, coming into our area. I have lived in Plateau over 50-plus years. I've seen the paper company comes and go, and we still do not seem to get any business or help. When the companies come in, they come in and stay as long as they want to, then they gone. We get no incentive from anyone to help us out there in Plateau. So like I say, I voiced the sentiment of what Ms. Davis has said, and I hope that you, as councilman, will give us some consideration in Plateau. Help us to have some business that we can strive to go on, that our children, grandchildren, older people will have a better living condition, that we do not have to be bothered with the fallout of the dust or whatever this is that is falling from the sky over there in our area. There have been times when we had to wash our cars, clean our houses from all this fallout. And like I say, I've been there over 50 years, and these other 50 I hope I have will be a better years for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Following Troy Wayman is Casey Calloway.
Good morning. My name is Troy Wayman. I have the privilege of serving as the Vice President of Economic Development for the Mobile Area Chamber of Commerce, which offices are located at 451 Government Street. I live in Mobile at 640 Chelsea Drive East. First of all, I want to thank the council for the thorough due diligence that you've done on this issue. I know that it has been painstakingly done, and I know that it has been, as I said, thorough. I also want to thank the council for the support that this council gives us in our economic development efforts. As part of the team that is responsible for those jobs that were created with the Airbus project, with the Alstel project, with the ThyssenKrupp, now AMNS, Calvert, and Altacumpo projects, with the things that happen at the port. This council plays a vital role in that, and the decisions that you make have made us a community that has been successful in economic development, and I thank you for that. I first want to start by pointing out that the historic districts that we have here, the commercial and the residential, were developed because of the commerce that happens at our port, not in spite of the commerce that happens at our port. And the continued success of our port is vital to the success of those communities, as well as the city as a whole, as well as the county as a whole. As an economic developer, one of the first things that we learn is you sell your benefits, you sell your natural resources, you sell what you have as a community. If you look at the map to Mobile, one of the things that's pointed out in the economic development section, it talks about retaining existing businesses and attracting new businesses. That's exactly what falls into my area of responsibility at the Chamber. It also talks about targeting specific industry sectors that capitalize on our natural resources, core industries, growth opportunities, and infrastructure, and support targeted economic development plans for commercial areas ripe for revitalization, such as our major commercial corridors. And I think that you see those things are happening. We've been successful in this community because our elected leadership has been very pro-business, not to the detriment of our environment, but has been very pro-business and has provided an environment for companies that can come here and succeed and make things happen. We are a port city, and we have been for our entire history. We have a reputation for being business friendly. If we destroy that reputation by becoming a community that changes the rules as the game is being played, or worse, after the game is played, then we're going to be devastated in our economic development efforts, and I don't see a way for us to succeed with that reputation on our shoulders. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Following Ms. Callaway is Frank Lott.
Okay.
Hi, Casey Callaway. I'm the Director of Mobile Baykeeper, and our office is downtown here in Mobile at 450C Government Street. My home address is Midtown at 17 North Reed Avenue. I had really hoped to be up here saying, let's do this. Let's do an ordinance that works for this community, because we have all worked hard to create an ordinance that would be the right one for this community. April 15th marks 2 years, and I do have to correct you on one thing, Ms. Gregory. The ad hoc work group did not, under any circumstances, have a year. If we had had an extra month, you wouldn't be here. That's what I want to assure you of. Okay. I think the discussion that we were able to have in that ad hoc work group was tremendous, but it wasn't finished. And we've spent 1.5 years with the Planning Commission having it, and indeed, there have been multiple opportunities for the public to weigh in and to present issues and concerns. The last thing we looked at was an agreement that got really, really close, and Mobile Baykeeper supports the agreement with one exception. What we're doing with this agreement is allowing new tanks to be built without public participation in the process, without Planning Commission approval, without the notification, because they'll be grandfather claused in. We didn't have a huge problem with that when we saw the way it was ramped up, when we saw the structure and the real estate, as you'll hear from our industry supporters and the business and the chamber supporters. There's not a lot of real estate. But unfortunately, there actually is a lot of real estate. And the closer you study the maps, you find out that there's over 30 acres of real estate. Proposals for tanks have been presented on fewer acres than that, for 20 and 30 acres of tanks, or I'm sorry, for 20 and 30 tanks on smaller acreage than that. That's where the concern comes in. We want something that gives business and industry the opportunity to grow and develop and operate within their footprint, within their system. We want to make sure that we've created a system, that we've created an ordinance that does exactly what I think Troy just said, gives them the knowledge that when they move in here and when they come to our community, that they know the parameters in which they can operate. Well, the community wants the same thing. Our neighbors who live in downtown, who have businesses in downtown or in Plateau and Africatown, want the same thing. They want to know that when they buy their house, they build their dream home, they start up their brand new business, they want to know what's in their neighborhood and their community around them. And we've got to make sure that we do that. And as much as I also was with Wanda this morning doing cartwheels and backflips over the whole review of a code so that it becomes more uniform. I'm sure each and every person who sits on the, and I also really dislike it when y'all do for and against because I'm in the middle. But on the against side are going to have a lot of different things that need to happen, and a lot of those are simple changes that will probably get cleaned up as the ordinance has gone through. But the biggest thing we have to do here, and what I, along with all of you, and I know Joel's probably shooting me darts right now, but he in particular and Beth sat in those meetings, every single one of the ad hoc work group meetings, was there. We want this thing to go forward. We want something that gives industry the leeway they need to grow and build and do, but that also protects our community. Both can happen, but not exactly as written. Our recommendation is to simply remove that last sentence in Section 7B that talks about new tanks. Industry can still build, take down, updo, grow, do what they need to do, but they've got to do it in the light of day by going through the Planning Commission. That is the only place where the public can have a say in what happens. So again, I wanted to be up here saying, we've got an ordinance, let's go, this is wonderful, but we don't quite have it. It'll take one change, but I think it's a change, and I'll bet money that the vast majority of people who are up here on the against side are saying the grandfather clause or the Section 7B is the thing that concerns them the most. We can tweak it, we can fix it, we can make it work. Thank you again for all of your time that you have dedicated to this issue for, it's really going on 4 years. But thank you so much, I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Following Mr. Lott is Suzanne Schwartz.
Hey, good morning still. I'm Frank Lott, 5191 Highway 90 West. And before I get into it, I really believe, like Ms. Gregory said, that there is a connection between business and environmental. We can find it. It may be small, but it's there. And the timeline we don't need to rehash. I think it's important to say that nothing is proposed. You know, we are debating an ordinance that sets up zoning restrictions. There is no projects proposed, as kind of has been said. And it was a democratic process. We've had several public hearings, and a lot of what's said has been said before. But the compromise was made over lots of things. The ordinance was written and rewritten. The one thing that was important, that what we understood from the pro-business side, was the setbacks. And the setbacks are more than any of our peer ports have, but we were comfortable adopting those setbacks out of compromise. But one of the things on our side of the compromise was that we had to protect our existing industry. You know, if you call it grandfathering or whatever you call it, what I call it is protecting what's there now. We did the study, you've heard about the study, that the connectivity between our between our energy sector and what's there is so important to our economy. And so we have to protect what's there. We can't change the rules in the middle of the game. Like Troy said, it's going to really put one arm behind our back as we recruit other businesses when they say we're going to make this enormous capital investment, and they may come back and change the rules in the middle of the game. 7B, which is the part of the ordinance that you hear come up, it's been in there for a significant amount of time. We agreed on this as part of the ordinance, and now why is there questions about 7B coming up now? I think it's purposeful, confusing rhetoric, and it's not fair. It's not part of the process that we all agreed on. Do we want to start over after we've all already agreed on a compromise? I guess that'll be what you all have to decide. I urge you to adopt it as it is. You know, this still has the potential to be a real trophy of business, of industry, of environmental, of citizens coming together in a public hearing, in a democratic process, and coming up with something that we all had agreed was moving forward. So I urge you to adopt it as it is, and appreciate your time today. Thanks.
Thank you.
Following Ms. Schwartz is Mark Nix.
Good morning. My name is Suzanne Schwartz. I live at 360 McDonald Avenue. I urge you to vote down this proposed amendment. It does little or nothing to protect the public. It does not clarify our existing ordinances, but only makes a confusing situation more difficult to interpret, regulate, and enforce, while guaranteeing almost unfettered growth of above-ground storage tanks in the ESA. This is indeed a time to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Governing the city of Mobile is conducted to a very large extent by unelected political appointments. These bodies have a lot of power with very little, if any, oversight and little or no accountability to the public. As one of the two most important offices elected by the public, you are the thin line protecting us against apathy, ignorance, cronyism, collusion, and corruption wherever it might occur. A great deal of focus is on the revitalization of downtown. Citizens from throughout the community are eager to see our downtown transformed into a vibrant place to work, play, and live. Cities around the country regulate dangerous port activities through comprehensive land use ordinances and zoning. This does not hinder port activity or hinder its success. It does, however, protect the public while supporting the port and encouraging broad-based business growth. It is settled law that the Alabama legislature has delegated to municipal legislative bodies, such as city councils, the power and authority to enact zoning ordinances within their city limits. This is one of the most important responsibilities you have. A complete overhaul of our zoning ordinances to determine whether or not they are pertinent to 21st century growth while protecting public health and safety and encouraging business development of all types is a vital first step. That process has begun. Don't rush to make that job more difficult by adopting an ordinance that does not solve the problem. It's well known that the two greatest economic drivers are consumer spending and small business growth. Don't let one industry dictate the direction our city will take. If we adopt the proposed ordinance, we will surely be creating an environment that will not keep Mobile growing. What we look for in our elected officials is honesty, integrity, accountability, and most of all, leadership. The power and authority are yours. Grab the reins firmly. Take control of this situation. Your electorate is looking to you to ensure our city is a place for everyone, and that you take seriously your responsibility to protect their health, safety, and welfare, while ushering our city into a future that honors the past, embraces the future, respects its environment, protects its citizens, and encourages 21st century growth. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
Following Mark Nix is Pete Burns.
Thank you, members of the council. I'm Mark Nix. I reside at 15 Kingsway in Mobile. I am the current chair of the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm also president and CEO of Infirmary Health System. I did speak at the Planning Commission hearing on this same topic. In prior few years, I served on the Water Board along with Councilmember Rich, and worked very closely with Mobile Baykeepers and Cassie on helping to reduce stormwater, sanitary sewer overflows in our region to protect our bay and other issues. So it is very possible that we can grow and we can be concerned about the environment in which we should be. I am here to speak in favor of the ordinance as presented, and my concern is not necessarily focused specifically on the tanks that are in question now, but the signal that it does send to business that we are going to approve you to come here and tell you all the things that we need for you to move your business and employ people here. But once you're here, we have the ability to change the rules and then dictate how you move forward on your business and how you are able to grow that business. So the grandfathering clause is the one that's at question here. You all are really in a leadership position because right now we have no ordinance. There are no restrictions other than coming to you for permits. The one that you're considering is more restrictive than any other port along the Gulf has. So it has already taken a leadership role in establishing protection to the communities downtown. I moved here in 1981, and in the 35 years since I've been here, and that was under a different administration, you all under your leadership and all of those that have served in public service over those 35 years have Mobile at the pinnacle of the location that it was in my time here. When I moved here, the only people that lived anywhere near the port were in the Plateau community. More businesses, more buildings downtown were vacant than not. More windows were out than not. More houses in Detente Square had been destroyed than not. And now you're seeing a energizing and a new population of people moving back downtown and creating a new vibrant community down here. Those were all created with job opportunities that were created when businesses moved to this community and started to employ people. And then the growth of that to allow people to move back downtown has created this, this stressed environment over what the environment is to live in that community, but to also be able to create jobs. So most of the things that Dr. Pfeiffer, who I know quite well and respect, most of the things that he showed about accidents that have happened were all involving rail cars. Rail cars exist today downtown. They exist, they cross our watershed every day, and they have been for 30 or 40 years. And, you know, we're not suggesting, or I haven't seen any ordinance that restrict the number of rail cars that any rail line can put over those same tracks. Once they're permitted and once they're licensing through, whether they bring 5 rail cars through that have dangerous materials or whether they bring 500 through, there is no restriction on that business. And so if we send a signal to businesses, yes, you can move here, and Airbus, you can build 1 plane or you can build 30 planes, but we don't want you to build 50 because they fly over our city and they provide risk to us. Risk is something we have to measure, and you all are taking that into account. You're establishing guidelines that have been established and looked at by community groups, including yourself, and with the input of environmental groups as well. And so I appreciate all the work that you've done on it. You have a leadership opportunity to create an ordinance that other cities have not done that does show we are being able to work both in an environment that is pro-business and pro-community as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Following Pete Burns is Jimmy Lyons.
Good morning. Thank you for the time you've devoted to this issue. My name is Pete Burns. I live at 255 North Jackson Street downtown. I'm here to speak against the proposed ordinance. The first thing I'd like to say is that the time is not right. An item on your agenda that's been discussed several times, the $600,000 contract to hire an expert zoner who has the confidence of the city. I think everybody here thinks, well, that's a really good step. And I appreciate the mayor following through and that y'all voting on that. I'm expecting you to pass it. For us now to make this major ordinance change would be the equivalent of a homeowner hiring an architect to redesign his house. And before the architect could get finished, thinking, well, I'm going to redo the living room and kitchen on my own. You don't pay for expert advice and then make layperson decisions. Looking at the contract with the zoning people, you see an interesting thing. Section 12 requires all kinds of insurance to protect the city of Mobile, to protect people that get hurt, to protect against disease and employees getting disease. Millions of dollars in coverage is required of this company that is merely doing a zoning study. And yet, the ordinance that is going to allow petroleum tanks right next to downtown on the west bank of the river, nothing. Silent when it comes to insurance. Silent when it comes to how you're going to protect the people that live downtown. The zoning people have to protect against disease. We know petroleum chemicals cause disease. And if the other side is going to dispute that, I would like to hear it. But what we don't know, where are the vapors going to go? Who is going to be impacted? How many schools? How many churches? How many families? How dense is the vapor going to be? They say we'll have no more information. We're not going to get new information. Well, we need to get that information before you can vote on that. If it's, suppose 5 people. The experts tell you that if you allow this, you're going to have 5 people with a shortened life. Are you going to go for that? Suppose the experts say, no, not 5, 50. 50 people. And over a period of 5 years, you're going to have 200. We don't know. How do you vote on something that you know is hazardous without being able to weigh the risk to the people? I'd also like to say that the location isn't right. Downtown Mobile is a great place to live. Once again, Mayor Stimson says that you can't have a great town without a great downtown, and I agree with that too. And things are really rocking downtown between Mardi Gras and the activities associated with Senior Bowl and New Year's Eve and all of the things that go on. It is a great place to be, but we smell petroleum now. And with the proposal that's on the table, there's going to be no way to determine, to eliminate or reduce the petroleum smells we have. I urge you to go slow. This is a major step. Let's see if the expert thinks that for a tourist city like Mobile, with everything we've got going on, petroleum tanks is a really good idea. I don't think he'll say that. But if he does, I'll stand corrected. Thank you.
Thank you.
Following Jimmy Lyons is Brenda Bolton.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Lyons, 28 Ashley Drive, Mobile, and my office is at 250 North Water, probably the closest office building to any of the tank terminals, and right immediately adjacent to the busiest rail track in Mobile. So I look at it every day, and what I'd like to point out is we're talking about an industry here that has existed for many decades here in Mobile. Some of the earlier tank farms are not here any longer. We actually own some of the property where some of the former tank farms were, and we've demolished those structures to put them into other uses, and found no lingering environmental problems. It's an industry that's operated safely here in Mobile and all over the country, all over the world, yet for many years. Yes, there are accidents, but I think painting a doomsday scenario here in Mobile is not a very accurate depiction. We celebrated the first flight of Airbus yesterday, and that Airbus plane got off the ground for a lot of reasons. Well, one of those reasons was the jet fuel that went in it. That aircraft, along with its following aircraft, are going to need jet fuel to get off the ground, just like we need automobile fuel to go back and forth to work. In fact, it reminds me I'm almost out of gas. But in any event, this has been talked about, and a lot of hours have been put into it by a lot of dedicated people, the ad hoc committee, the planning commission, the council itself. I know you've heard from many of your constituents and many who aren't your constituents about this issue. I don't think anybody is entirely happy with this ordinance. I can tell you that the operators of the tank terminals, there are some parts about it that they're not real happy about. There are parts of it that some of the people in the opposition are not entirely happy with. There's some people that won't be happy under any circumstances until this port's gone. The tank terminals play a vital role here in the port and play a vital role really in the whole community. And they have a place here, they have an obligation to run safely, but operating safely is just good business practice and one that we see very evident. I see in talking to the operators of these facilities a very high level of safety conscious. And so I would urge you to look at this bill. It's something that's in the middle. It doesn't make everybody happy, which probably tells you it's probably a pretty good deal if not everybody's not happy. But I would urge you to go ahead and move forward on this. So let's get this behind us and let the next stage of revamping our planning ordinances go on and move the city forward as before. Thank you.
Thank you.
Following Ms. Bolton is Jennifer Denson.
Good morning. I'm Brenda Bolton. I live on West Street in Floclair in the Lioncoff District, District 2. Thank you for letting us speak this morning and for not limiting the number of speakers. I appreciate that courtesy. You know, I think most of you know that I represented District 2 on the ad hoc committee, so I'm pretty familiar with what that report recommended. And so my remarks today are going to be strictly limited to this ordinance that's on the agenda today and how it departs from the ad hoc report, because I still support what came out of the ad hoc committee, even though I wasn't 100% satisfied with it. You know, it was a balanced committee. It had industry representatives. You know, we hammered out a consensus, and the recommendations that are in the first part of the report, that represents compromise. I'm not talking about the minority report, which, as you all know, was just added opinion, but the main part of the report is what I'm focusing on today. There are three things in this ordinance that are good. More information on which all deciding bodies as well as citizens can base their positions, an expanded application and an engineer's review. You know, we support an improved process that provides a finding of fact on which decisions can be based. There's a wider notification area. We support more citizens knowing what's going on. And there is, as some of our industry representatives have said, a separation, a good separation as a setback between tanks and people, and we support land use that isolates heavy I-2 industry. But remember that the ad hoc report was 8 pages long, and so what I want to talk about for the rest of my time is what were those compromises that are ignored in this ordinance, because there were quite a few. We have three things that we got, if you want to put it in those terms. I don't really like to, but, and there were, by my count, 14 things that we gave up. I think the industry here has said they gave up setbacks. So the ad hoc committee actually said that there would be no expansion of existing tanks in the ESA. And so that is gone. We said that there would be a prohibition of tanks in the downtown waterfront zone or the business core, depending on which Mobile plan you identify that by. It seems to us the map for Mobile is pretty meaningless without that insurance. We said that we wanted proof of adequate insurance, which Mr. Burns has spoken to, and I won't repeat. We said that there should be flood protection beyond what is minimally required by law because of our unique landscape and our being in the hurricane zone that we're in. And we said that there should be a historic district buffer, and I want to take just a minute because people keep confusing buffer with setback. A buffer can be anything from a vegetative strip to a piece of blank land to a down-zoned zone between people and heavy industry. And so we're not saying that there should be, I mean, the ad hoc report didn't suggest there should be a half a mile of untouched, undeveloped land to protect Africatown as a historic district. So think of it in those terms. We also said that there should be a positive economic benefit shown and little environmental, obviously negative environmental impact, and of course that would take an assessment, a good assessment prior to the project, which goes back to a finding of fact on which decisions can be made. We said the focus should be on health with safeguards, and we asked for odor control. Now, those are the main things that I found. There are 6 more things for a total of 14. And so in light of that, I'm afraid like Casey, I would like to, but I can't support the ordinance that is before you. I won't go over 7B. I think that's clear that, you know, nobody wants that. Was that sound for my minute or for my end of time? 1 minute, okay. Let me just end by saying that, you know, I knew someone would say in the celebration about Airbus that, you know, it flies on fuel. And so I want to just remind you not to be distracted by those kinds of statements, because nobody is saying we're going to give up gasoline. Nobody is saying we don't need petroleum. For me and for most people, it is a matter of appropriate location. And that's what zoning is all about.
Okay,
and so that's what I would ask you to consider.
Thank you, Ms. Bolton. That was your time.
That was my time. Thank you.
Following Ms. Denson is, and I can't understand your handwriting, I'm sorry, Dr. Werlecki.
Borderlecki.
Vladimir.
Well, we've moved into the afternoon, so good afternoon. I appreciate the time here. My name is Jennifer Denson. I'm the Executive Director for Partners for Environmental Progress at 754 Downtowner Loop West. I live in West Mobile at 1912 Ventry Court. So I speak today on behalf of our 220 member companies, which employ 22,000 local individuals in the area, and we support the ordinance as written, and we encourage the City Council to pass it. Our members agree, as we've heard today, that the port is the backbone of our local economy. Businesses such as AM&S, Austell, Evonik invest in this area, supplying tens of thousands of well-paying jobs and that rely on the services at the port. It's critical to our community. But at the same time, Mobile's future depends on ensuring a balance between business development and job creation, industrial growth, and a healthy environment. This ordinance would be one of, if not the strictest of its kind in any port city in the nation. It brings a balance. We commend the City Council's interest in addressing the concerns of our local neighborhoods and residents. Your efforts have resulted in more than 20 months of extensive legal and engineering research to address safety and public information needs while allowing the terminals to continue to operate in the safe and well-regulated manner they have for decades. We still believe the Planning Commission's current process works for storage tanks, but we do appreciate that this ordinance as proposed absolutely improves the process. It increases transparency, communication, and expert review. We applaud the requirements for expanded notification and review by a professional, experienced, and independent engineer before the building permit process. However, in regards to the increased setback to 1,500 feet, we'd like to highlight several facts presented at the Planning Commission level. Tom Wade, an expert for fire protection, who served on the technical committee for the National Fire Protection Association, shared compelling information regarding setbacks. The NFPA sets the national recognized code standards for flammable and combustible liquids to address life safety risks. Based on scientific study, the NFPA experts have determined that the life safety standard for a typical crude oil storage tank in Mobile to be at least half the diameter of a storage tank to the property line. Based on that typical tank, this setback for Mobile is 82 feet from the tank to the neighboring property line. That's the national standard for crude oil tanks. So in response to the concerns of local residents about safety, the Planning Commission established a 1,000-foot setback, more than 12 times the national standard. The current ordinance now expands the setback to 1,500 feet, 18 times the national standard. Balancing community and business is absolutely necessary. But as we look to the future, because we know we will have other issues and zoning issues that we will be focusing on, we urge caution on setting such arbitrary numbers or compromises that are not based on science, analysis, and facts. But thank you for your consideration, and again, we support the ordinance as written, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to share my points of view. My name is Huerta Leakey. I'm a physician, pediatrician, and I spent many decades studying environmental causes of human maldevelopment, including cancer. In the context of this hearing, I would like to say that I am all for keep Mobile growing, but I am not for keep Mobile growing sicker. And I think it is self-evident that in my tenure as chairman of medical genetics at the university, we did monitoring, and we became very familiar with mercury, among other things, and the degradation of the air quality, which put Mobile on the possibility that EPA was going to declare a moratorium for further pollution, therefore no industrial development. Let me say the fundamental here. Oil, gasoline, coal are hydrocarbons. They all are unstable and they all degrade. As they degrade, they reach you through the air, through the water, or through the ground. And you incorporate that. That is a carcinogen, and there's no point in discussing the issue. That's proven beyond doubt. And any carcinogen is a cause of birth defects if it impacts the unborn. And that's the core issue here. Now, before I go into what called my attention before today, I would like to say what called my attention, what I heard here. One is that all this ordinance looked at all angles. Sorry, no angle of health that I have been aware of. This also says, well, we have overregulated, it's all wonderful. The fact is that Alabama has no regulations. The only regulation we have is federal. And the enforcement of the federal has to be done by ADEM. And ADEM has a 76% budget cut. So please tell me, who is kidding whom? And therefore, it is a possibility that the EPA, in the past worried about the air, may come in and say, well, no more ADEM. You're now under the federal jurisdiction. And then ask yourself, where is this ordinance? And what role does it play? Now let me go more specific. 1 pint of gasoline destroys about more or less 1 mile of surface water for a long haul. Now imagine that you have a derailment. Who says that accidents don't happen? Please, let me know who. And now you have a situation of the water supply of the city. Is there a plan? You heard of Michigan? What are you going to do if the water is undrinkable? 1 gallon of gasoline is 1 million gallons of water useless. And we have knowledge about BP and all that other stuff. Now, hydrocarbons don't work alone. they have additives. And one of the additives is mercury. So we have at least 2 pollutants, and we are the leading site of wet deposition of mercury in the country. I don't hear a thing about it. But we hear about quality of life, we respect the environment. Show me, where is it? Where is the health dimension of this? So to make it short, I think when you talk about an economic benefit study, which has been shown around, and I read it, and it's not easy to find, so I regret to say it means like there's no interest for the public to read it. It doesn't have a shred of concern about health. And any economic benefit without a study of risk is not worth calling it that. Call it whatever you may. It may be an advocacy document, it may be a very good one. But for you, as city councilors, I would consider that a tainted document. So thank you for your attention, and I hope that you make the right decision.
All right, thank you.
Next.
Steve Gordon, and following Steve Gordon is Craig Lindsay.
Good afternoon. Good morning, but it's afternoon. My name's Steve Gordon. I reside at 3451 Stein, 36608. I'm also the current president of Keep Mobile Growing. We're a nonprofit organization with over 100 businesses and industries that work in the port with over 13,000 employees. Keep Mobile Growing was organized in the summer of 2014 when environmentalist extremists from outside Mobile came in with a national agenda and started to wage a campaign to age out the above-ground tank petroleum industry, creating local concern through fear tactics and misinformation. All this despite an industry that had a safe operating history of over 100 years and fuel the very operations of the Port of Mobile, which is the lifeline of this city. We engaged in an education campaign in order to have the community better understand and appreciate our industry and cut through the myths being perpetuated about it for the purpose of an agenda outside of Mobile. We have engaged and developed a relationship with the Africatown Community Development Corporation, the group of residents that are working to reduce blight and improve their historic neighborhood. They are the group of residencies that recognized by the City of Mobile Planning Department in their recent publication of the Africatown Neighborhood Plan, January 2016 publication. Their interests are to reduce blight, increase residents in the plateau area, and students in the Mobile County Training School, and prevent industry from encroaching on their historic neighborhood. We support them and work with them and want to be good neighbors to one another. Myths have been dispelled about the alleged dangers of the exploding tanks and the connection to railroads. There are none. There are no terminals in Mobile that are connected to railroads. So that is a total myth. The tremendous economic impact of the industry and its impact on the port has been quantified. We have maintained that an additional minimum setback for our tank to neighborhoods is not necessary because it is regulated already, as y'all heard, by the National Fire Prevention Association to ensure safety for human life. No other competing Southeast port has such a safe setback imposed on the local level. Y'all heard plenty of that. However, we do very much appreciate the Planning Commission and the City Council for being responsive to the citizens and industry concerns and have taken ample time to hear and understand all these concerns. As a result of this discussions over the last 2 years, the ordinance includes a minimum setback of 1,500 feet, and the Planning Commission, remember, has the authority to increase that setback on a case-by-case basis. That is just the minimum. We appreciate the reasons why this gives our neighboring communities additional assurances in the interest of maintaining good relations with the community. So in that, we can support this ordinance for that reason, as long as the protection for existing industry can continue to operate on their current footprint. The proposed ordinance includes this necessary protection in paragraph 7B. This paragraph is essential, and I commend the City Council for including it in the ordinance. Thank you very much for your time.
I have a question.
Ms. Rich.
Mr. Gordon,
Mr. Gordon.
I have a question. Tried to catch you before you got to.
I get my exercise.
I know that you are instrumental in the Keep Mobile Growing group. Do you actually have is your industry the tank farm or the storage tanks? Is that what you do? Because I have questions to individuals that are absolutely in that industry. Is that your area of expertise or interest?
I operate 3 terminals in the Port of Mobile,
Okay.
2 on the east bank and 1 on the west bank in the enhanced scrutiny zone. The one on the west bank is over 100 years old, documented by photographs. We've operated safely for over 100 years in our industry.
Okay, well, I have some questions that kind of dovetail on what Dr. Warder-Lucky was talking about, which is the health aspect. And when there is exposure to the petrochemical fumes, do you see that as a health risk for people exposed to that?
We are regulated by the EPA, which is enforced by ADEM and the EPA. We are vetted yearly by ADEM and the EPA for our emissions. If the emissions levels do not fall within the parameters of the product that we carry or handle in our terminals, then we have to improve to capture the emissions that our products emit. Our products in my terminals meet the federal guidelines, and we have controls for the emissions.
But there have been some that have not met and have been sanctioned. Is that true?
In what regard?
Not yours, but in the city of Mobile and in this industry.
In what regard?
Mobile Asphalt, I believe, was fined and faulted on not living up to regulations. But it takes a violation until that happens. So at least you know that you are watching that. So you know that it has a health risk. And that's a genuine thing, and it is something we did not really put into the equation. Do you know how many residents would be exposed to your tanks that you control? Have you ever looked at or ringed to see
No, ma'am,
businesses?
I don't, because we don't admit any products that are not regulated under the EPA or ADEM.
Until you hear from them that you violated. I mean, you
Well,
we're report to
we're
this?
audited, we're vetted, and if we don't pass the audit and vet by the EPA and ADEM, then we have to cease operation until we come within compliance. So if there's a bad player, and every industry has a bad player, and you evidently pointed out one at the time. I don't know whether how long ago that fine was, but if there is a bad player in the community, then they need to be brought forth and it needs to be corrected. And I'm for that, because I pay a lot of money to be a good player in the community.
We appreciate that, but that's something that is not quantitated or known to citizens when you're looking at the growth of this industry, because it's always assumed that the EPA or our ADEM, which we heard is very taxed, and EPA goes all over the nation, so they don't have time to watch what's going on here. It's usually after the fact where there's been a violation. So it's up to our city
to make these information known to citizens so that they know what to expect?
Well, that data is public knowledge. You can go on the website and pull up what each terminal operator is carrying. If they are truly interested in seeing what that is published information, and it is documented every year. The terminal operators have to put it in for public information.
Right, but your sanction is already a violation when that happens. Is that?
Pardon me?
You get a sanction after you violate it.
Well, it's kind of like a speeding ticket. Yes, if you start speeding, you're going to get a ticket.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right,
Thank you.
maybe say it. Thank you. No.
Following Mr. Lindsay is Richard Tremaine.
Good day. My name is Craig Lindsay. I live at 706 Monroe Street, downtown. And I didn't intend to speak, but when I picked up the Sunday morning paper, I was compelled on the front page. The front page, anyone see this? Front page is striking. It says, response to similar chemical spills vastly different for low-income Black American residents and affluent white California counterparts. And it states by saying, fixed in California, October 2015, gas leak starts outside Los Angeles. 6,000 households evacuated. Governor declared a state of emergency. State of California sued Southern California Gas. Assistance Center opened for affected residents. $50 million paid to temporary relocating people. And then the next caption is, not fixed in 8 Mile, June 2008. Mercaption spills in 8 Mile Creek. Despite persistent odors, no resident evacuated. Regulators declined to penalize Mobile Gas. Groundwater and public health no longer monitored. Well, accidents do happen. And I applaud Mr. Mayor and for all of the City Council to vote a new zoning study, because anything that is 100 years old, like tankers, need to be studied. And it's very well documented that low-income residents of neighborhoods are the first impacted by chemical expansion. It is a fact, it is a natural, you can cite this in many, many, many studies. So I just want to say that this report was written by a reporter, this story from 8 Mile for Insider Climate News, a Pulitzer Prize-winning nonprofit, nonpartisan news organization that covers climate, energy, and environmental issues, and it is syndicated all over the world. Mobile is being watched. Mobile is being watched very carefully, and this impacts our decision for people to move here, for people to live here, for people to grow here. And so we are being watched. So I just wanted to bring this to your attention. Accidents do happen, and it does have a human face. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Lambert, who's next?
Richard Tremaine. Following Mr. Tremaine is Joe Womack.
Good afternoon, Madam President and Council. I'm Richard Tremaine Jr. of 2757 Brevard Drive here in Mobile, and I am here to support, of course, the vote which you have in front of you, to vote yes on your proposal. I'm a marine engineer, and I grew up here in Mobile. I have spent my entire career as a marine engineer here in these parts. I'm the son of a marine engineer who brought me here to Mobile. I'm also the brother of a marine engineer. So I am very much a part of the maritime industry, and have always known or had some appreciation for the value of the port in the life of Mobile. The port is the lifeblood of Mobile. The maritime industry is what this whole city was founded on. This is the international gateway to Alabama. To give you some idea of my involvement in the maritime, I'm also, and in conservationism. I'm the past chair of the board of trustees of the Dauphin Island Sea Lab Foundation, which supports the really good scientific work done at the Dauphin Island Sea Lab. I'm also the past president of the Port of Mobile's Propeller Club, and I am currently the Southeast Region Vice President for the International Propeller Club of the U.S. So to say I'm a part of the maritime, it's really a part of me. Now, given that Mobile is this port city, and given that we know all commerce that comes through here affects our entire state, to simply look at the numbers and say, well, the port and its businesses employs about 150,000 people is not giving it full shrift. You do realize that everything that comes through this port affects everybody in this state to some degree or another. We have about 250 people in the Propeller Club here in Mobile, representing about 130 companies. Not all those companies were counted in that 150,000 person number, so they're even more than what those numbers that have been published indicate. When we have a customer come through the port, a ship that uses our port, all the boats that use our harbors, those are customers of ours. And I mean yours, mine, because we are Mobile, and Mobile is maritime. Those people depend on us in this community to be able to provide the goods and services that they need in order to continue to want to use our facilities. If we can't continue to provide those goods and services, then those ships that bring that cargo that get distributed throughout the region, and not even just Alabama, will go to Savannah or Tampa, New Orleans, Jacksonville, somewhere else, and we will not see that commerce. This is a huge industry for our region. This is a very important thing that you have in front of you, because it's simply, and as simple as it is just setting this framework in order for our businesses who traffic in the logistics of petroleum to service our customers, all of our customers, who want to be able to grow their businesses to further serve those needs. And as has been said, there's no great plan afoot to massively expand the footprint of tank farms in Mobile, Alabama. But we do need that pathway forward. It sounds like very good legislation, and I support that you vote to uphold it as written now, as amended now. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Following Mr. Womack is Tom Wade.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Joe Womack, 2816 Westmore Court, Mobile. I'm here to remind everyone that all lives matter. Downtown Mobile matters. Africatown matters. The question today is, what came first? No, not the chicken or the egg, but in Africatown, the people are the business. And as Councilor Richardson pointed out a few months ago to a citizen that wasn't aware, the people came first. The people were always here first. They should be respected and they should be protected. You all realize that when you authorized $50,000 for a consultant to come in and help the citizens of Africatown talk about their community and what they wanted to do. And I was there with them. I was in the huddle with them, helping them make the plans. And believe me, those plans did not include storage tanks. No way, no how did they include storage tanks. If you walked around District 2, one thing, and try to fit in storage tanks, the first thing you would probably say is, where are you going to put them? There really isn't anywhere to put these things. What you're trying to do is create space with words in an ordinance, and it's not working. Everyone over here knows it's not working. Everyone over here knows he's not working, but sometimes you can sort of create the illusion with smoke and mirrors with words, and it's not working in this ordinance. You need a buffer zone. You need a blast zone. Or I like to say in the military, you need a kill zone to protect people. Madam President, if you pull out a grenade right now and pull that pin, you would injure everyone there, everyone here, and everyone probably in this first row. You would injure them. And the next time we had a meeting, you'll be sitting up there by yourself, everybody else will be in the back, and that would be your buffer. And that's what you need. You got to protect people. And that's what you're here to do. That's why you're sitting up there. That's why you were elected, to make the decisions to help the people. Businesses are there to make money, and you've seen it. But the people have to be protected also. Someone mentioned that their study showed that for one tank, the setback was 80 feet. Keep Mobile growing. Are you going to build one tank? Tell me. My study indicates you might be a 50. Well, if my math is right, you multiply 50 times 40, you get 4,000 feet. Let's use that. 4,000 feet as a setback. That's what you should use. Protect the people. Have a zone. Have a buffer. You have a clear buffer. No words that can be misconstrued 40 years from now. Let's settle this thing right now. International paper said over there for 50 years. When the industry sort of turned up a little bit and the government changed its regulations, they told them to either take the pollution control facilities, or as I like to call them poison control facilities. Because when pollutant is a poison for the environment, that's what it is, a poison that kills us. If you take arson and put it piece by piece, you're going to eventually kill someone. So I call them a poison control facility, which is what the vapors are. You either increase them and make them better, or you leave. They said, we'll leave. That shows what they cared about the people. But from my own personal experience, when I came back to Mobile, I worked for Shell Oil in the chemical business, at a chemical plant for 43. Our part of chemicals dealt with herbicides and insecticides, with agricultural chemicals. 1 year, the oil business went bad. Chemicals wasn't making much money. So the president, to get his big bonus, said, let's sell off this plant. And they sold it to DuPont just to make that bottom line number look good so he can get his big bonus. And it's still DuPont right now. For you, anybody who worked for DuPont, that's how you got here. People are here. People come first. People lives matter. Let's keep it safe for our people. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Ms. Lambert, next. Come on down.
Following Mr. Wade is Herb Wagner.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Wade, 4110 Moffett Road. I apologize in advance. I'm not a big public speaker, but I am an expert in the field of fire protection. I have designed fire protection systems at many different types of industrial facilities, including tank farms. Some of my local fire protection system designs can be found at ThyssenKrupp, SSAB, and Airbus, as well as other occupancies such as the University of South Alabama. My fire protection design for Airbus Final Assembly Line was recently named Engineering Innovation of the Year at the NFPA conference. As you are aware, the city has adopted the International Series of Building Codes, which includes the International Fire Code, also known as the IFC. The primary focus of codes has evolved over the decades to protect occupants, the public, and emergency responders. To put it succinctly, the purpose of the code is to save lives. I'm coming before you today to briefly discuss the codes and standards that are currently adopted by the City of Mobile with regards to storage tanks. The IFC includes, by way of reference, the requirements of NFPA 30, which is the Flammable and Combustible Liquids Code published by the National Fire Protection Association. NFPA 30 is what's known as a consensus standard, which means that operators, code officials, constructors, engineers, and the public all have input into the standard. The parent document from which NFPA 30 originates was first published in 1913. NFPA changed the document in 1957 to align it with the format of the rest of their codes and standards. This document has been revised many times as experience and technological advances have become available. The scope of NFPA 30 includes storage, warehousing, dispensing, piping, operations at any facility using, processing, or storing flammable and combustible liquids. One key requirement under NFPA 30 is the setback distances to tanks and other buildings as well as roadways. Setback distances stipulated in NFPA 30 apply to all new tanks and any new tanks built at an existing terminal. And they have a technical justification based on decades of empirical and theoretical data that's been collected from actual fires as well as large and small scale fire tests. These data sets are listed in the appendix of NFPA 30. Some of the data and reports used in the formulation of NFPA 30 include sources such as the United Nations, the EPA, OSHA, UL, the Steel Tank Institute, Society of Fire Protection Engineers, ASTM, API, and research universities, just to name a few. In layman's terms, the spacing requirements of NFPA 30 are based on fluid or liquid in a tank using a classification system, the diameter, and the fixed fire suppression systems that are installed to protect the tank. Standoff distances are not the only consideration when designing these facilities. Passive and active fire protections should be provided. Active systems include fixed fire protection for both extinguishment and exposure, portable fire protection, and hose reels for the diked areas. Passive fire protections required by NFPA 30 include control of ignition sources through methods such as grounding from lightning, hot work permitting, access control, no smoking areas, containment, diking, maintenance, testing, and standoff distances. Crude oil tanks are specifically designed not to explode. Consequently, it's not even proper to even consider a blast zone for above-ground storage tanks. NFPA setbacks provide the safety distance needed in the event of any fire scenario involving crude oil tank. I find it intellectually dishonest that some people would choose to bring sensational pictures of rail cars and tanker trucks burning and ask you to impose limits on above-ground storage tanks based on those. They are just completely different from one another. Finally, I would like to state emphatically that the city has done a wonderful thing by already adopting a very comprehensive standard like NFPA 30 to regulate these tanks. In my professional opinion, Mobile Fire Rescue has one of the best fire prevention bureaus around insofar as properly applying the appropriate codes and standards. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mrs. Rich has a question.
I don't know if you're the right person, maybe Admiral Landau is better, but to your knowledge, does the city have adequate apparatus in the event of a circumstance?
Yes.
And where is that unit?
Well, they have fire apparatus. I couldn't tell you exactly where all the stations are, but they also have a boat. And all of the terminal facilities have foam on site to assist with extinguishment.
Okay, because I have learned otherwise that the city needs to purchase a piece of equipment that would be recommended with this industry, and that we...
I haven't heard that. Most of the fixed fire suppression systems have connection. I'm sorry. Most of the fixed fire suppression systems have connections for the fire department to connect to so that they can feed them without taking their equipment right up next to the tank.
So they don't need it on the apparatus? Because I was told it's something that would have to be part of the apparatus for fighting any kind of circumstance that
I'm not sure what they would be talking about. Usually it's just water and foam for these types of tanks.
Do we have a foam truck?
We're working on getting one now, but we do have hazmat material and capabilities that would be used in this type of event.
And the hazmat is off a range line, is that correct?
It's up where the USER headquarters is by the Spring Hill Station.
That's where the hazmat
Right,
stays?
but we move it around as well.
Okay.
Additionally, most of the systems installed by the terminal facilities, when they have fixed fire suppression systems installed, have adequate foam for the city to use when they arrive on site.
Does Dr. Eichel have something?
I thought the chief had this right before the
beginning of this, and the city of Mobile does not have.
This is out of order.
Yeah,
If you could.
well,
It is
hang
important.
on. Dr. Eichholder, you signed up to speak?
Yes.
He did.
He
All
did.
right, why don't we just hear from you when you come
Thank
down?
you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Herb Wagner, and following Herb Wagner is Randall Forrester.
Herb Wagner, 732 Jemison Street, Mobile, Alabama. Good to see all of y'all. Sorry I missed y'all last week. We had a great weekend in Mobile for a lot of reasons. There are several places to start. One, I would like to start with between 1980 and 2000, there were 42,860 oil spills in the United States. If you include oil spills less than 50 gallons, that goes up to 4.3 million. And I'm just, without being ugly, I think it's amazing we've only had one spill in Mobile in 100 years, at least reported that we know of. We've had 3 accidents at that particular location. One was the Gulf Coast asphalt explosion, and then 2 months later, we found that there was 1 million gallons of oil that Chevron hid underneath the asphalt. So I wanted to jump into that. And some of these myths of the people who come from, get our directions from other places. I come from all the way from the Loop. I guess you could say I got my marching orders from a priest from Ireland and nuns from St. Louis, and parents from Alabama and Mississippi. But we are local, and some of the myths that have appeared in the newspaper, one is that hurricanes do not affect tank farms. Then tell that to the people in Louisiana, where 11 million gallons spilled during the hurricanes Katrina and Rita from tank farms. That's a Coast Guard number. You can find it in the Times-Picayune. The oil in Chalmette, adjusters found oil stains on the ceilings of properties because of oil spills from tank farms. Another thing about this explosion, I want to live 82 feet away from an exploding tank, and the setbacks are wonderful. But again, what Dr. Waterlecki said about fumes, it is now very well established that fumes from hydrocarbons cause disease and infection, behavioral abnormalities, cancer, genetic mutation, endocrine disruption, reproductive malfunction, and other physiological malfunctions such as death. There's no doubt that, and minorities do, 80% of the populations living within a mile of industry, of this type of industry, are minorities. And again, you see higher cases in Africatown of certain cancers than you see in the Loop. So there's really no doubt about the connections and the need for protection. And I do appreciate very much this whole process. And I've been engaged, as you know, not only in this process, but the map of Mobile, which I applaud very much. And I'm also, like a couple of speakers, would like to support this. But I mean, this grandfathering clause is absurd. Who does it protect? Does it protect the people? To say, well, we're not even going to worry for the rest of our lives, the rest of the history of Mobile, whether you build new tanks and what you put in them. I don't see that as serving Mobile. I definitely wanted to bring that particular issue up. And I've been suspicious of an enhanced security zone, enhanced scrutiny zone, because I was in a planning commission meeting, and on the sulfuric acid tanks, someone, well, is that in the enhanced scrutiny zone? I'm thinking, well, the idea of the enhanced scrutiny zone isn't to say, well, we don't have to scrutinize something, but I do worry about that. And it just simply, putting tank farms downtown is just not the right place. For years, I had to explain to people, oh, well, the wind's blowing in the wrong direction for me because I live in the Loop, and that's the paper mill. I don't want to walk down this beautiful new plan on Water Street and explain to my friends who are GIST, of Mobile, oh, well, that's the petrochemical, the smell of petrochemicals from tank farms. Let's keep Mobile clean. We're not against the port. We're not against the industry. We just want to make sure that it's in the right place and that downtown is not the right place. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Following Mr. Randall Forrester is Leila Lowe.
My name is Randall Forrester. I reside on Downer Road in Wilmer. My office is in Pritchard, Alabama, off Whistler. I'm the manager over AccuTrans, AccuShip Marine, over the Alabama and Louisiana division. I'm here on behalf of Keep Mobile Growing and representing AccuTrans and AccuShip Marine. We work directly in Mobile with each facility on the river, providing tankermen, air watch, implant operations, truck loaders, unloaders, rail car loaders, unloaders, dock pick operations, tank gauging, and many other services for the Mobile area. I personally have worked at the majority of the facilities for over 12 years. As a representative from my company and the guys who work with me and the Mobile area, we account for 213 employees strong, who will be either directly or indirectly affected by any ill actions toward the oil industry on the Mobile River. This issue not only affects the 213 employees within my company, but also the wives, children, parents, and other affiliates that are relying on the oil industry and a monetary value. I can only speak for myself personally and my personal standpoint, and I'll be 100% candid with everyone. The work that is provided by Mobile's oil industry is all I know. It is my only source of income and my only way of providing for my family. I have facilities, in these facilities and docks that I work on, I have witnessed no accidents of any significance and implore you to look into any and all real research statistics that will speak for themselves. I personally believe that Mobile has the most highly qualified managers, supervisors, and skilled workers in the country. As the oil field grows, we also grow with the ever-changing rules and regulations that are strictly abided by. Within our industry, we are regulated by the Clean Air Act, the National Fire Protection Association, Federal Authority, the United States Coast Guard, and many others that I have not named. I can honestly say I believe that with all the rules, regulations, restrictions, and training that is in place, it is one of the safest job fields that can be worked in, not only for the industry or for the facilities, but for all the working members within these plants and facilities. I implore you to think about all the ramifications that would be involved in shutting this industry down. We have to stand up and fight for the truth, the facts, and the hard-working citizens in the Mobile community. I was always taught as a child to set a goal and to strive to obtain that said goal. My goal now is to finally speak out not only for myself, but for the voices who now, as we sit here today, are working and fighting to do the jobs that are being placed in jeopardy. I'm now asking you to please show your support for our industry, for keeping Mobile growing, but most of all for our people, our rights, and our community, as we strive to grow into a better Mobile. So please, let's come together, build a better tomorrow, not only for ourselves, but for the future generations to come. Thank you for your time and support as we strive to keep Mobile growing.
Thank you.
Following Ms. Lowe is Charles Wilson.
Good afternoon. My name is Lella Lowe. I live at 2609 Shea Court. I'm here today to talk to you about externalities, external costs that do not enter into a profit and loss statement of a business. Our industrial economy is based on the practice of externalizing costs. This makes goods and services, things like petroleum products, cheaper for us here and now. It also significantly improves the bottom line of industries. But there are problems with externalizing costs. An example of an externality is delaying safety and maintenance expenditures, and that's often the first area that gets cut when profits plummet, as in the case of lower oil prices. When the Exxon Valdez oil tanker crashed in 1989, it was because the radar had been switched off because it was broken, and it had been that way for a year. A similar pattern of cutting costs on safety by BP, Halliburton, and Transocean was discovered following the disaster in the Gulf in 2010. We hear from industry representatives here today that they will be adhering to all federal and state safety requirements, but I suspect that Exxon, BP, Halliburton, and Transocean said the same thing. As profit goes down, risk-taking goes up, because the costs of taking risk don't affect the bottom line, and it's an externality. And you've heard these risks today called myths, and that's how they're treated by industry. Externalities include such costs as reduced home values because a tank farm has been located so close to a community that people fear for their health and safety, and they can't sell their property because no one else wants to live there either. An externality may be a historic community that wants to revitalize their neighborhood, but the neighborhood is crumbling around them as people flee from the idea of being a fence-line community living next door to a dangerous, dirty storage facility. The cost of fossil fuels and the goods that are made from them are artificially low because we don't count the costs that we're passing along to future generations through environmental damage and to those who are in the blast zone should disaster occur. Externalities, such as those already presented today by Dr. Pfeiffer, Pete Burns, Mary Louise Moore, Dr. Werdelecki, among others. Companies make a practice of externalizing costs so that they can improve their bottom lines and make the case for expansion of their businesses, such as expanding tank farms. But a city cannot afford to externalize these costs when they're considering how a business should go about setting up shop in the community. Please don't let the health and safety of the Africatown community and downtown Mobile become an externality in your calculations for doing business with the petrochemical industry. It might be more expensive, it might be a lot more expensive for these industries to take their operations to an area that doesn't have a large residential population and where their risk to our ecosystem is almost non-existent. But the city, our elected officials, are not in the business of making a profit. Government is in the business of guaranteeing that all residents have equal protection from such hazards. Thank you.
Following Mr. Wilson is John Klotz.
Good afternoon, Council. I'm Charles Wilson, 26738 Bring Court in Daphne, Alabama. Take you down a little memory road. A few hundred yards from here, 30 years ago, I boarded a bus. I went to Parris Island, North Carolina, served 8 years in the United States Marine Corps. I swore this hand to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That includes the state of Alabama and the great city of Mobile. You know, I saw communism defeated, dictatorships fall, and now terrorism is taking a hold of us. I never thought I'd be standing right here, just a few hundred yards from that bus terminal, defending my industry and my way of life against environmentalism. So, what are risks to people? The tanks out there, some of them have been there. They say we have a 100-year history. No tank out there is 100 years old, I assure you. They've all been updated and improved up to the standards required by law. So, what is a true hazard? Is a hazard a gun? Is it fires? Is it traffic accidents? Is it a grenade that someone mentioned earlier that Gina Gregory had to throw at us? Well, I assure you there's laws against throwing grenades at people, and there's certainly laws to protect our environment and our people against the hazards, what few hazards, that a storage tank may cause. Dragging an industry down here to impose unnecessary restrictions upon it would be like this council calling up Joe Bullard and saying, you have the safest cars in the city of Mobile. We have way too many deaths on our road. So what I would like to see is 5-part harnesses on all cars, 18 times the airbags, restrict the speed by 18 miles an hour, take 18 times the vehicles off the road. But we were not going to do that, are we? As our youth become more aggressive and are faced with the hazards of firearms. We welcome industries into this city, like Field and Stream, that sells thousands of guns a year and millions of rounds of ammunition. You're not going to call up the police chief and say, hey, let's restrict that by 18 times. Let's not sell a box of bullet at 50. Let's sell one. Let's stop the number of guns sold at Field and Stream by 18 times that amount. You wouldn't think of it. We talk about hazards. You know, one of the biggest hazards, and if you look up the most ways to die, is heart disease, caused by obesity. But yet we all got excited when Costco moved in. We all went down there and dug up our shovels, but we put no restrictions on them whatsoever. Not the 15 pounds of chocolate-covered raisins they sell at one time, or the heart-clogging, diabetes-affected 50-pound tub of lard that they sell to fry your French fries. But yet all of a sudden, an industry that's been in Mobile for over 100 years and may have had one death during that time, it's all about the safety of our citizens. When in fact, what it really is an all-out assault on the oil and gas industry, paid for by people like George Soros and the left out in California, and apparently some implants from Charleston, South Carolina, that has infiltrated this great city. 18 times the restrictions is what you're asking from any standard that there would be. Not OSHA, not NFPA, not the Coast Guard, not any fire code, not any city code written anywhere has that type of restriction. So what you're doing today is putting 18 times the restrictions on. About 1 minute left?
Yes.
Thank you. So, just like the ATF comes in and regulates gun dealers and inspects them, just like the Department of Transportation goes down to Joe Bullard and makes sure their vehicles are safest in Mobile, we are imbounded by spot inspections at any time in our terminals by the EPA, ADEM, U.S. Coast Guard Station, the Mobile Fire Department, DOT, the Department of Labor, and you can go on and on and on. It was asked if there was a device of foam or an apparatus that could be used in case of a tank fire. And I say tank fire because tanks burn, they don't explode. Right? Right now today on Blakely Island, there is a trailer that is used for exactly that, for foam. It's a foam apparatus and it is shared by all the industries out there. And the Mobile Fire Department is very aware that that apparatus is there. With that, I'll take any questions you may have since I am out of time.
Yes,
Mr. Richardson, go ahead.
Pardon me. Are you for or against the ordinance?
I'm against any ordinance that restricts the already standards.
But any ordinance is not before us. Any ordinance is not before us. We have a definitive ordinance that's before us, not any.
Amendment before us.
Are you for the ordinance that's before us, or are you against the ordinance that's before us?
I am for the ordinance with one exception, and that is the unregulated, non-scientific fact, no basis of any kind, no studied, of 18 times the standard of the setbacks.
Okay, it did sound like that when you were talking, but okay, I hear you.
All right, any other questions since he has opened himself up? Anybody? All right, thank you, appreciate it. Before we go forward, we had a Finance Committee meeting scheduled at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Mr. Daves is the chair, and because it is already after 1 o'clock and we still have other speakers plus the rest of our agenda, we are canceling that meeting. We will just get back with everyone and let you know when we will reschedule the Finance Committee meeting. All right, Ms. Lambert.
Following Mr. Klotz, Jared White.
Good afternoon. I'm John Klotz. I live at 959 Dauphin Street, and I didn't realize how late it was. I probably got a parking ticket outside now. But I look at this
amendment to the zoning thing is a very important rule. And I think it's so important that it's really got to be done right the first time. And with your ad hoc committee that was established, I think you made a really good attempt to make sure this was done right. And I've supported the ad hoc committee's reports. But I'm a little bit disappointed at some of the deviations that have been made from that. And, you know, particularly in the lines of financial responsibility, of vapor control, which really is our health issues in this city. Of course, that grandfather clause that's in there right now is totally unacceptable, and I think both sides of this House agree with that. And the other thing that I had a little bit of concern about on this was we're looking at possibly bringing some of these tar sands oils, the Bakken crudes, and I do not think they are identified in definition well enough that we really know what they are, and that's just kind of an open thing that I'm concerned about, and I don't know if this ordinance takes care of that or not. Basically, I think Pete Burns and Brenda Bolton have given a very good summary of what some of these problems are, and I'm not going to go into those. A lot of people have made really good presentations here, but the other thing, if we look at the city of Mobile, as far as industry goes, you know, if we look at the success of Airbus, the success of Austell, the growth of Hargrove downtown, the RSA initiatives downtown, the new hotels, I don't think anybody's going to look at this city and say that we're anti-business or anti-growth. I think we have a lot of good things that are very obvious and everybody sees. Now, as far as oil tanks and storage facilities go, I think maybe a little extra scrutiny in these areas of dangerous and polluting industries might well be in order. Let's stick with the good, clean business and look very strongly at the non-clean businesses. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Following Mr. White is Dr. Aisho.
Good afternoon, Jared White. I live on Dolphin Street. I live about closer than probably 98% of the speakers to the waterfront and to the tanks. I'm here today in support of it. I want to talk a little bit about how we got there, then how the proposal would work. As far as how we got here, it's been alluded, this has been a 2-year process. What I want to focus on is the input the public has had and the examination of facts that's occurred. The ad hoc committee had some input sessions. Then once it got to the Planning Commission, their subcommittee had 2 public hearings, each of which lasted in excess of 2 hours apiece. Then when it went to the full Planning Commission, they had another 2-hour or 3-hour public hearings, including one in Africatown. First time, to my knowledge, the Planning Commission has ever conducted an off-site public hearing. They solicited information from the ad hoc committee members, from council members, and they received information from experts like Tom Wade, who you heard from today. And throughout the process, the people who want to age out the industry, and I'm not making that up, that was in the ad hoc report, or groups like the Sierra Club, whose speaker spoke today, who have a Beyond Oil agenda, have continued to raise a number of concerns. And those concerns were raised at the Planning Commission level. Planning Commission considered it, looked at the facts, and rejected those concerns. And I don't have time to get through all of them today, but I just want to again call out, like for instance, this business about insurance. That's already provided for under the Oil Pollution Act. Federal law requires an operator have proof of financial responsibility, which includes insurance or sufficient assets, in order to operate. So that's something that's regulated at the federal level. The city doesn't have jurisdiction of that, and it's provided for. Same thing with air emissions. Municipalities in Alabama have no right to regulate air emissions under the Alabama Constitution and legislation, so you can't do that. If you did that, you get a lawsuit. But it is regulated by the EPA, as speakers have said, and it's not a, we'll hope we can break it and not get caught. As Mr. Wilson said, there are spot inspections on a regular basis. You turn in reports, so it is continuously monitored. And there is no, you might get away with it. It's regularly monitored. There's been this business about rail cars. As someone has said, no terminals are connected to rail cars. So that's another myth. Then there's, been, from time to time, this smell. We had speakers of the Planning Commission said you could smell it in this room. Well, you don't smell it in this room. That's just another myth that's been made up. And then, lastly, there's been this continued effort to just say, let's slow down the process. Let's stop it. Let's put this off. And, we heard for a year, well, let's see what the map of Mobile does. Well, you heard from Mr. Wyman from the Chamber of Commerce, the map of Mobile is consistent with what is proposed by this council, which is utilizing our assets, our natural resources, protecting the report, and protecting existing industry. This is where, there's not any concept of locating tanks throughout the city. The tank farms that exist have been here for decades. They're located on the industrialized port where the map of Mobile says they should be and where the map of Mobile says they need to be protected. So, that's the process of how and then also there's been this illusion of expansion of tanks downtown, and that is absolutely ridiculous. There's no expansion on the horizon. And as far as downtown, if this ordinance that the council's proposed passes, the setback would prohibit any tanks anywhere close to downtown. There's also not available real estate anywhere close to downtown. But for instance, the proposal from 4 years ago to put tanks near the GM&O terminal would be prohibited by the setbacks. That's a dead issue. Now, I want to talk about I think what the council has done is come up with something. It's what the Planning Commission recommended with enhancements. Nothing from the Planning Commission was scrapped. The council simply added to that. You've increased the setback, which has a significant impact on the port and on the city. It excludes a great deal of potential real estate that could be developed. So in exchange for saying we're going to protect our neighborhoods and give them an assurance of a minimum setback, which could be increased, we're going to, by doing that and giving up a lot of real estate on our limited port, we're going to balance that off by protecting the real estate occupied by the 8 terminals. And that's where these terminals have operated for decades. And the 7B provision simply allows those terminals to continue operating on their footprint. It does not allow them to expand off their footprint. It does not allow them to operate unregulated on their footprint. From a use perspective, the council is saying, we know you're using that for petroleum storage. You may continue using that for petroleum storage, and you don't have to go back to the Planning Commission for use. But you still have to comply with all the zoning requirements that would be required for that industrial 2 property. You have to comply with all building code requirements, which includes the latest, greatest in flood control, latest, greatest in building control. You still have to go through an independent engineer review process. And of course, you still have to comply with all the you have to comply with the fire codes, the NFPA setback the speaker talked about. And you still have to comply with all the federal regulations, such as berming and other things of that nature. So, and of course, you are transparent about this because you're preparing a site plan, which is required at the building code level to make sure you meet the fire code setbacks, but you're giving a copy of that to the Planning Commission so that everyone knows exactly what you have. You're putting information on there about what you're storing and how you're getting that. So I would urge you to pass what you have advertised. I think it's a fair ordinance, it's a compromise, and protects everyone.
I have a question.
Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Rich has a question.
Thank you. I know that I had the pleasure of meeting with you, and I believe there were 3 other attorneys present and Ms. Callaway when you presented. Are you a planning attorney, lawyer, or can you tell us what your interest in this is and who
Well, absolutely. Mobile's not a big enough city, in my opinion, for many lawyers to specialize. So I like to say I'm an anything under the sun attorney. I don't do criminal work and I don't do divorce work. But other than that, I do litigation, I do zoning, I do planning. Okay. I've studied the Mobile zoning code at great length. I think I'm very familiar with it, and certainly, have an interest in that.
And you were hired by someone in planning, or how did you get to the table to have such an interest?
Well, I've been working with Keep Mobile Growing for 2 years on this issue.
Okay, so that's who you work for.
Correct.
And that
and as I said, from my perspective, and Keep Mobile Growing's perspective, our goal was to come up with something that was a compromise everybody could live with. You've heard speakers say we'd like no setback. And when a setback was recommended by the Planning Commission, we reached out to people in the community, as Mr. Gordon said, we reached out to people in Africatown, and they said, it's about mutual respect. We don't have a problem with the existing footprint. Our concern is new sites. So, you know, it became clear that a grandfathering provision was not issued to them. And then we talked to Casey Calloway from Baykeeper and, you know, said, you know, is there a way we can come to a consensus on this? And, you know, the trade-off from our perspective was we will agree to a 1,500-foot setback if you agree to grandfather, including the last sentence of 7B. And that is, you know, we thought we had a consensus on that, and I'm very disappointed that Baykeeper is not supporting what they'd agreed to as to the last sentence of 7B.
Well, obviously, what was advertised went out to more people for their understanding. Even our own council attorney answered my office when I asked what that language meant. And we do site-specific PUDs over and over in every single classification, whether it's residential or commercial or industrial. So to grandfather it in your particular industry is going far and above what is normal, a process that we've always gone through. I saw that immediately, and I believe I brought it to your attention.
I have to disagree very strongly. 90% of what occurs under the zoning ordinance is done without a site plan approval. And the best example is a residential property. You have a property zoned R1, someone wants to put a house on there.
Yes, because it's one house. When you have a PUD, you have more structures than is allowed by right. That's the difference. That's what brings it out for public scrutiny. You're not just doing one store or one tank. You're doing multiples. You're putting multiple storage facility or units on one piece of property. And a PUD is expanding what is allowed by right. And it's always done through the Planning Commission. We are one of the only cities in the state that is not the final word. We only hear the appeals, which is unfortunate, and hopefully will be rewritten when we get this new code.
Well, again, I do have to disagree. The City Council of Mobile, by Alabama legislation, has general plenary authority over zoning and land use. And the City Council can say, it has in many instances say, this is a use by right. You can go build a guided missile assembly plant or an asphalt manufacturing plant on an I-2 property without ever going to the Planning Commission or ever going to the City Council. So, you know, I don't think that allowing on an existing site that's been utilized, by the way, I'll also point out that many of these sites predate the zoning ordinance adopted in 1967, so they've never had a site plan approved by the Planning Commission. So again, this is not a departure from both practice or from the City Council's authority what's been proposed. I think it's a very reasonable concept, and certainly given what we've seen over the last year, I think is needed from a practical business standpoint as well.
I appreciate your, and respect what you have to say, but plan unit developments always go before the Planning Commission and should come to council as well. Thank you.
So,
All right, any other questions, Mr. Richardson? Did you have them?
So, on the 1,500
Yes, sir.
setback, are you opposed to that? Are you supportive of that?
I think that the 1,500-foot setback is palatable and acceptable if combined with the grandfathering language in 7B.
I think
because they go hand in hand. The setback says this is what we're going to do, and we're going to protect neighborhoods, and we're going to limit potential new construction that way in new sites. And you're giving up sites in the city. So in order to ensure that there's a balance and that port's protected, our economy's protected, and quite frankly, our industrial area is protected, where it's located now, we all know where it is, where no one seems to have a problem with it currently being, then the grandfathering does that. So I think they work together, and I support them together.
I think we're dealing with apples and oranges. I think the 1,500 setback will work well in Africatown, but the 7B has nothing to do with Africatown. It has to do with the western section of the river. About 30 or 35 acres of land that's not in Africatown. So we can't put the two together. It's a whole, these are two separate issues. So when you go get the dictionary. Grandfather mean I'm gonna let it stay as it is. Not I'm giving you more or less. I'm gonna let, if I live on this piece of land, so I'm gonna grandfather you in, I'm gonna let you live on the land. Not I'm gonna let you live on the land, you're gonna get my land and some land over here too. It means I'm gonna leave you as you are. And I don't think you're gonna find no dictionary anywhere that's gonna argue with that language. I'm not saying I'm far against, but I'm saying grandfather historically for the city of Mobile and for anywhere else I know mean we're going to let you remain as you are. And I think that's what all what you hear is people are saying it's going to change and not remain. That's something that we're going to have to take up when all of these discussions are over. But that's the issue.
Yes, sir. If I could briefly comment, the 30 acres, as I understand it, is property that's already owned by an owner. It's adjacent to their terminal and has in fact had tanks on it in the past. So they're not grabbing up new land or expanding off a current footprint. But, there's a principle under zoning called extending non-conforming uses. And so, already if you have a property, and it's a little bit of a different comparison because these properties are conforming uses, but if you're a non-conforming use, let's say you're operating a business in a building on a residential property, you're allowed under our zoning ordinance to extend your non-conforming use to that entire property, into that building, at least take in that building, potentially expand that building. And there's some different provisions on extending non-conforming uses, but the point is the zoning ordinance does allow in limited circumstances within a set footprint, which is what we're talking about, to utilize that full property even if it's a non-conforming use. Now these are conforming uses, and I think what 7B is doing is simply saying for your footprint, which will be captured and fixed as of the date the ordinance passes, can never be expanded beyond that, can't be anywhere other than contiguous property as of the day it passes, you may utilize that property and that property only.
But it's also saying, but if I want to expand, I have the right to expand, and what I put in that tank, I don't have to tell nobody.
No, sir. You're required to submit to the Planning Commission your site plan, what's in the tank, what classification it is. It's the same information someone would submit if they were going through the whole application process.
I haven't seen the week. Okay. I'll see.
Yes, sir. And I'd welcome a chance to talk further about it if you have any concerns. Thank you for your comments.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Following Dr. Eichel. Following Dr. Eichel is Casey Pipes.
Yes, Bert Eichhold, Eichold, 165 South Georgia Avenue. I am a physician and health officer of Mobile County. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and this is an important issue. The Mobile County Health Department is not opposed to tanks. The Mobile County Health Department supports economic growth and development. We do have concerns about health. We've talked briefly about fire. Is it, quite honestly, there's not the ability or capability in the city of Mobile to extinguish a large major tank fire, 1 million barrels of fuel, and I'm not sure environmentally if that's what we really want to do, just like with Phenol Chemie, when it caught on fire, it didn't pollute down the Bay Area. It burned, and we dispose of a lot of very dangerous stuff by incineration. So we do not have the capacity to extinguish a tank fire. The question of a tank fire is correct. Is Libya, and I refer you to Rutgers news service, 1 million barrels of crude oil on fire in Libya, one single rocket-powered grenade. And I commend the council for remembering Paris and Brussels with acts of terrorism. I think the industry runs a very good program. I commend them for their safety standards. I commend everything else, but we're living in a different world, and I will tell the council we need to think about the density of the population of fuel and flammable liquids in a downtown metropolitan area. Significant concern that we have. Vapors are another issue, and I agree with Dr. Wartelecki that benzene and volatile organic liquids are not good to breathe, not healthy. I would recommend that there be vapor recovery in the permitting process of the construction. You may not have jurisdiction over air, but you can say you got to have, the tanks have to be contained, and that's a construction issue that you can put in. I also point out that people say grandfathering is not fair or whatever with changing the rules. Look at the Southern Company, major generation of energy. They had to come into compliance with the EPA air regulations after a certain period of time. So if y'all will think about industry use, it's clearly in the law, and Southern Company came in compliance with Berry Steam Plant, spent tens of millions of dollars to make that become compliant. So I think you need to sit down and say with these others with vapor recovery, if they want to get permits to do constructions on their tank, the construction must include vapor recovery. Insurance, yes, we require insurance for our cars.
So every driver has to have a car. You won't get your car tag renewed, you gotta have insurance. So I agree with Mr. Burns that I think insurance is a good issue. If there is no risk, what will be the premium for the insurance policy? So it should not be an economic issue for industry to have adequate coverage. So the EPA regulations and rules and regulations, all that's probably under review with Homeland Security about what can we do as we look at our threat in the community. I commend the council for allowing everybody to participate. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you.
Was that Mr. Sprague?
Pardon me?
Who was at the yield?
Casey Pipes.
Oh, okay. All right, next we have Ramsey Sprague. And next we'll have Bruce McGowan.
Good afternoon. What a long meeting, right? You know, I think it's really. I'm Ramsey Sprague. I live at 63 South Fulton Street, District 2. Been living here for 3 years now, and I've become very, very familiar with the concerns of Africatown's residents as first a participant in and now president of Mobile Environmental Justice Action Coalition. I think it's fairly stunning to suggest that there's no concerns with existing industry. The concerns range from everything from dust to fumes to toxic vapors to explosions and hazards to muddied pipeline easements that aren't upkept properly or don't seem to be upkept properly. You know, we've gone through a extensive consultation process, and the historic abuses done to the community, and I'm talking industrial accidents that have happened. It didn't get a lot of press, but there was a chlorine derailment on the rail line there in the community. Some residents here may remember. There was a community meeting called, and the company paid $50 for people to sign an indemnity clause. Some people didn't sign, but most people signed. The assumption was that, you know, there is no risk, we don't care about your health, and you can't sue us after that. Health is the major concern, and it's the central concern that I bring to the table as an environmental justice advocate here. I come from a community that's been devastated by the oil industry, 2 communities, in fact, Houma, Louisiana, my family's from Dulac, the heart of the offshore industry. I was raised in Arlington, Texas, the heart of the Barnett Shale fracking expansion. I understand very clearly the risks that cities who are not prepared for major expansions in industrial activity face. I am excited that we're looking at, as a city, the zoning code comprehensively. I think it opens up a lot of doors to positively engaging a community that, many communities that were not engaged at all. 0 consultation when the zoning amendments, when the zoning code was first established. That in itself, in a city that is majority African American, is an outrage. And we do need a restart, right? We need a place to start again and start fresh so we can build equitably from the ground up. There's a lot of other concerns with the ordinance itself that I have that haven't been expressed, so just give me a second because I have them all written right here. The setback's been talked about. 1,500 feet is not a bad number, but again, going to the heart of what I've been told by numerous residents, hundreds and hundreds of residents of Africatown, after block walking, canvassing, sitting in their homes and documenting their concerns, is that they want permanent protection. And it's not unreasonable to look at that and say, why does Africatown need special consideration? It doesn't. Historic districts deserve special consideration as themselves. Africatown is a historic district, and it would do no disservice to anybody to provide for a large buffer around all of Mobile's historic districts in order to see that their interests are protected so that they can revitalize in a way that isn't threatened at every turn by a possible interest, a looming industrial interest that would provide industrial blight. That is the heart of what is wrong in Africatown. We can say that it's housing, people aren't upkeeping their own houses, but clearly the vast majority of the contributing properties are city and industry properties. So, you know, looking at that concern, the 1,500-foot setback doesn't provide for permanent protection because the land nearby can be subdivided. I'm familiar with that process. And then you have a buffer that no longer applies, simply by moving the current parcel of land, subdividing it, and taking the interest further back outside the 1,500 feet. The 1,500 feet is barely touching the houses on Jake's Lane. It is already like this. We can live with this. Well, we can change the line, what we're asking for, very, very easily. And it's a swift process, and the city has a clean planning process. I've been sitting in planning meetings for months now, and I commend y'all for having a very speedy process, but sometimes it doesn't serve the interests of communities that have historically been not consulted with, historically not been asked to the table. And after hundreds and hundreds of residents turned out for the Planning Commission meeting in Africatown,
Yes, sir.
we
We
need
hear you, and
permanent
that's your
protection.
time.
Thank you.
I'm going to improve your afternoon by yielding to the next speaker.
Jason Kudalis.
Okay.
Jason Kudalis, and following Jason is Cade Vistos, Wishes, or something.
Good afternoon, Jason Cadulas with Mobile Baykeeper. As has been mentioned throughout the day, I'll make my comments brief. We did work in coordination with industry on this, and we felt good about a lot that was in the document. And as Ms. Gregory stated, 90% is in, but that 10% that is not, particularly that last sentence of Section 7B, giving the grandfathering to new tanks, does not bode well. We talk about the port being the backbone of our economy, and I agree with that to some extent, but we've also have these new outlets for our economy. Manufacturing with Airbus, the technology sector with Southern Light, and the technology corridor we're looking to input. You know, I would think if a developer came down to Water Street and wanted to build a 10 or 15-story complex, that the port would be intriguing to those potential home buyers. But if they wake up one morning and there are 30 new tanks across that, what type of health and community risk are in effect that are going to maybe keep them from wanting to purchase that land or that condo structure? You know, the city of Gulf Shores, their bread and butter is tourism. We say here, we've heard throughout the day, our bread and butter is the port. They took risk of their own local economy by saying alcohol on the beach is adding to degrading our natural resources, and the community said they didn't want it during the spring break period. They took that risk in a swift action, and we'll see if it plays out, but to say that they had that and to look at this issue here, to compare them somewhat with looking into the best interest of the community and the health of our community and still focusing on our economic impact, I think plays into this. So again, the ordinance has been going on, the amendment for several years. Don't take away the hard work that's been done, but that last line in 7B really needs to be re-examined. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Lambert.
Cade Kistler, Mobile Baykeeper. Try to be brief and respect y'all's time. First thing I want to do is applaud the work of the City Council and the Planning Commission and the ad hoc group that did all the hard work to get us to this point. At this point, you know, we have a great compromise in front of us, but there is one major flaw. And that flaw, I think, has been reiterated a number of times with the last sentence in 7B. So, you know, if we look at it, a lot of people have said it's necessary that we have 7B so that they can continue to operate, so that they continue to use the footprint they already have. We understand that it's important for business to be able to work in the footprint they have so that they don't feel the rules are being changed out from under them. We understand that people need to replace and repair, upgrade, and we're all for that. However, the last sentence doesn't pertain to working on the footprint that you're already on. It pertains to adding tanks and being able to expand onto not property that you don't already own, but property that's not already utilized without planning commission approval. And that takes away the transparency of the process. So while that information is submitted to the planning commission, as I heard referenced earlier, there's no need for approval, there's no need for public discussion. It is more or less signed and sealed when it gets to that point. And there are other measures that they have to go through, but once they get to the planning commission, there is no approval and no public involvement. And I just want to briefly reference the fact that, it was discussed that Mobile Baykeeper was in agreement with that 7B section. We had tentatively agreed when we looked at the map that was presented to us in meetings by Keep Mobile Growing, but Ms. Calloway, my boss, asked me to look and examine the rest of the whole port area, and it was noted that there were a few areas where significant expansion was possible. And that's what we take issue with, is not being able to work within a small footprint, but have significant expansion into other areas that are owned but not utilized as tanks currently. And with that, I want to thank you for your time.
Can I get your name and address again for the record?
Cade Kistler, 450 Government Street.
All right, thank you.
Madam President?
Yes, sir, Mr. Williams?
Kate, you mentioned this one piece of property.
Oh.
How far is it from let's just start with the river. How far is it from the river?
I don't have a definite number for you. I'm sure somebody else will be able to give you a better number, but it's not very far, a few hundred feet.
I'm sorry, I thought you said you had discovered it on the map.
I did look at it on the map. I don't know the exact distance it is from the river. I'm sorry, but
Okay.
it is very close. It's on the eastern side of, I guess it's Highway 90 there on the island, and it's a few hundred feet probably at most.
A few hundred feet from the river. And how far from residents?
That would be a larger number. I'm not sure that exact number, but it is further from residents than a few hundred feet. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions someone raised? Thank you.
Nancy Hanna.
Maybe she is yielding her time. Okay.
That's it.
Is that it? Nancy?
Hannah.
Oh. Nancy. All right, this is a public hearing, so if your name was not on the sign-in sheet and you wish to speak, now is your chance. All right, with that then, I'm going to close out the public hearing. I do want to thank those who are still in attendance here. I know we've lost quite a bit of our audience, but I want to thank you all for coming. This truly has been quite an exhaustive process for the council, for the Planning Commission, for the ad hoc committee, for everyone who was interested in this process, from residents to industry. So I appreciate your sticking with us and going through this. Again, we will not vote on this today. We will be laying this over for more discussion. But I do want to thank everyone who has been involved, again, in particular those who have spent so much time and effort working on this, from our ad hoc committee members, many of whom are in the audience today, to the Planning Commission, and other interested industry members and members of the community. So thank you all for being here. And I know it's probably time for lunch or past time. So we will end this public hearing. All right, Ms. Lambert.
Presentation of petitions and other communications to the council. Anton Mabin.
Two hours, 27 minutes.
2 hours, 27 minutes. You might want to wait just a second, let all these folks get out so that.
That's right. I recognize that.
Just a few more minutes.
Okay, they just standing up. They just resting the legs. No, they're not going anywhere. I think we need to go.
All right, we're going to go ahead with our speakers. If you all are having conversations up in the corner, if y'all would take them on outside so we can hear. All right. I think we're just about there. Okay, why don't you go ahead? Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. On today, the Amalgamated Transit Union will present the council and the mayor filed a Title VI complaint with FTA concerning the wave transit cuts. Here in these packages is the sample ballot. We have over 2,000 signatures, and we're moving forward with more. I'll be passing this to the city clerk.
Okay.
Also, it was kind of down to hear that a study was done, which it should have been done pertaining to the tankers as far as the oil, but it wasn't a study done prior to find out the impact as far as cutting the public transportation. It's kind of sad. Also, with that being said, we have some questions on this evening pertaining to the cuts. We are requesting the documents that are related to the following budget in the current budget in the 2014 and 15 wave transit. All documents that reflect line items by line expenditures by the wave transit payment to the wave in the monthly basis, the current contract as well as the 2014 contract. All related emails or correspondence between the City of Mobile and the wave transit regarding the proposed cuts would be effective April 2016. Copies of all three proposals related to the service cuts of April 2016. This information is being noted would like to be presented. We also would like to acknowledge that we did receive the other information on yesterday evening. We haven't had the opportunity to look it over, to review it, but we will do so and send you guys correspondence. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Reverend Scott.
Good afternoon. My name is Ernest G. Scott. I reside at 6114 Farron Woods Court, Mobile. We come this afternoon, I had morning earlier, but we come this afternoon as representatives of the Mobile Community United for Action. Some have left and some are still here. We have a great concern today of the makeup of the City of Mobile administration. According to Alabama Law 114C, Section 93A, also known as the Zogby Act. As stated in the Zogby Act, Section 93A, it states that wherein 30 days of taking office, the officials of the form of government chosen shall adopt an ordinance to provide that all appointment made by the mayor, council, or city commissions to position in city government, boards, commissions, agencies, authority, or any other organization or entity of the city or to any position to which said officials shall make appointments. Those appointments shall be fairly, equitable, reflect the makeup of the total community within the consideration given to all demographics of the population. Our concerns are that the appointments made by this administration are not fairly, they are not equitably, and certainly does not reflect the makeup of the total community with due consideration given to the demographic and the characteristics of the populations. When we consider all the facts of the demographic and characteristics of the population of the City of Mobile, according to the U.S. Census in 2010, that the total population of the City of Mobile were 195,111 citizens. Of that 195,111 citizens, you have 87,723 white citizens, which is 45% of the total population. Total black citizen populations is 98,691, which is 50.6% of the total population. Other citizens, 8,697, which is 4.5%. That is our 2010 census. But also, according to the U.S. Census population, estimate was done on July the 1st, 2014. For the city of Mobile population is 194,675, which is 45% white and 50.6% black. The problem is that the appointments made by the mayor, council, does not reflect the demographic characteristics of the population of the city of Mobile. We're asking that our city officials, our mayor, our council, follow the law when making appointments that are fair and that are equitably and that represent and reflect the makeup of the total community of the city of Mobile. Then we will become the one Mobile. Thank you.
Thank you.
Reverend Brown.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good afternoon. I'm Reverend Robert Earl Bobby Brown, Sr. I reside at 3651 Winlock Court, and my council person is Mr. John Williams. A great man once said that the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenges and controversy. I come before you this afternoon with several areas of concern, and they are as follows. In 6 days, we will or we should be observing the 31st anniversary of the Zogby Act. Section 93B of this act states that within 30 days of taking office, the officials of the form of government chosen shall adopt an ordinance to provide contracts or agreements entered into by the city or any entity thereof for any service of any kind, whether by bid or otherwise, including but not limiting to professional services and bond issues, shall make every reasonable effort, must have at least 15% participation of the social and economically disadvantaged individual. Not may have, but must have. Not a part of, but a total value of all contracts. My question this afternoon is, has this section of this act been complied with? Since we are presently at day 861 of the chosen form of government. And if not, why not? And if not now, when?
Madam President?
Yes, sir, Mr. Richardson?
Reverend Brown?
Yes, sir.
You're reading from the Zogby Act 11-44C-93.
Yes, sir.
It has 1, 2, and 3. You're reading from number 2.
Okay.
If you wait here long enough, there are going to be, and you've been here for a long time, it's been a long meeting, but the rest of what we have left won't last long. But there are 2 major contracts on this agenda. And what you're going to find out, that is more than 15% of those contracts going to go to minorities. We've been doing that for a while. We have a department looking out for that. So I think we got that segment under control. And there are 3 sections. The other section 3 has to do with capital projects.
With what?
Capital projects. Okay. It states that capital funding should be distributed equitable among all council districts. You'll see that this year Each council member received $3 million. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Same thing. The first time in the history of City of Mobile. But we have started. Now the segment that was raised earlier, Section 1, about hiring our citizens in a fair and equitable manner based on demographics, ethnicity, or whatever way you want to put it. We got work to do. We have work to do. But in terms of the city clerk's office, there are 4 employees right here working for the city clerk's office. 2 of them black and 2 of them white. We don't have nothing to do with the other part of administration. There's 1 employee we can hire, city clerk. All of the other employees in the city work for the administration. Administration gonna have to speak for itself. But in terms of the boards, all of our boards are rich with diversity. All council boards are rich with diversity. So I'm not here to speak for, I can speak for from the council point of view. I can't speak from no other point of view.
All right. Anyone else? And you will notice that all of our employees are females.
Well, Jim.
Well, Jim.
Oh, heck.
All right. Any other discussion? All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Ordinance is being introduced for the first time, 64013.
By council rules, that ordinance was level for 1B.
All right.
Consent resolutions being introduced, 21181 through 6187.
Motion for the suspension of the rules for immediate consideration of ordinance. I'm gonna put my glasses on. Oh, I got it right here. Ordinance 181 through 6187.
Second. Discussion. All in favor? Aye.
21181, authorized contract amendment with Hutchinson, Moore, and Roush for Tomanville Sidewalk CDBG project.
Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
31182, 183, and 184, authorizing the mayor to apply, accept, and receive an agreement of understanding with the Department of Justice developing improved means to collect digital evidence program grant, policing initiative program grant, and a national assault kit initiative program grants, all with no local match.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
58185 and 186, assess cost for removal of weeds, group 15 and 15, and declare weeds noxious, group 1536.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
6187, approve award of special bonus to employees as of the mayor's incentive program, excuse me.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
CIP resolutions being introduced for the first time, 21188.
Motion to suspend the rules for immediate consideration of resolution 21188.
Second. Discussion.
Wait.
Okay, yeah, I think we're going to lay this one over, yeah.
This one gets laid.
Right, this one's going to be laid over too. We discussed that in pre-conference.
Okay.
Per council rules, this one will also be laid over.
Resolutions being introduced for the first time, 01189 through 21192.
By council rules, these resolutions will be laid over.
Laid over as well, okay.
Call for public hearings, 4119. Call for public hearing scheduled April 19th, 41193. Call for public hearing to rezone property at 3500 and 3520 Government Boulevard, north side of West I-65 Service Road, south 510 feet, east of Lakeside Drive from I-1 and B3 to B3, and 41-194, call for public hearing to rezone property at 351 and 401 Western Drive and 3216 and 3224 Moffett Road, north side of Moffett Road, 320 feet west of Western Drive, extending to the west side of Western Drive, 320 feet north of Moffett Road, from B1 and B3 to B1.
So move.
Second.
I-1, I'm sorry.
I-1, okay. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Announcements.
Well, all right. Does anybody have an announcement?
No.
Just a reminder, there are a number of Easter sunrise services throughout the city. Please take a look at those. There are a number in Mr. Williams' district. I don't know if you want to run those down, John. There's also one in Langen Park at 7 o'clock. There's one at Holy Church of God Cottage. So those are the sponsors. The annual Riverside Easter service will be held on Sunday, March 27th from 7 a.m. until 8 a.m. That is one of the sunrise services. So again, there are a lot of those Easter egg hunts. We hope you all have a wonderful holiday weekend, and we'll see you next week. We're adjourned.
Okay, what time is it? I told you it was going to be.